Oh, no, I've been waiting to speak for 45 years.
Yeah, when you start, you want to take it in a sheet. When? Welcome, everyone. We'll get the call of the meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Village of Fundy Albert Council for December 5th, 2023. First item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda that was circulated in advance. Everyone has seen the agenda that was circulated. Are there any errors or omissions or additions? I would propose the addition of public comments and statements as item number 12. This would make the closed session item number 13 and the adjournment item number 14. Do all councilors consent to the addition of this item to the agenda? So I'll accept the motion to adopt the agenda as amended. So moved by Councilor Land, seconded by Councilor Elderkin. Any questions on the motion? Not, all in favor, signify by stating aye. Opposed, if any? Motion's carried unanimously. Any conflicts of interest to declare in relation to this evening's meetings? There not being any, I will move on to item number 4, which is the adoption of previous minutes. We have the following minutes to approve this evening, those of the regular council meeting of November 7th, 2023, and those of the special council meeting of November 27th, 2023. The draft minutes of the regular meeting on November 7th, 2023 were circulated in advance of the meeting. Are there any errors or omissions to report?
I'd like to make or suggest a correction, at least.
Go ahead, Councilor.
So this is in the November 7th regular meeting. In the statements and inquiries, it is true that I raised an issue about the Hillsborough Recreation Council, and I know it will be discussed tonight, but the minutes indicate that it's a long-standing charity. And I don't think it's a charity. I believe it's a nonprofit organization.
That's correct.
So I think we should just correct that. Okay. It may be what was said during the meeting, but now that we know that it's not a charity, let's fix that.
Okay.
That's the only thing. Thank you.
Any other changes? Errors? If not, I'll accept a motion to adopt the amended minutes of the November 7th meeting as presented. So moved by Councilor Coates, seconded by Councilor Jonas. Questions on the motion? Being none, all in favor of the motion to adopt the amended minutes as presented, signify by stating aye. Opposed, if any? Motion's carried unanimously. The draft minutes of the special meeting on November 27th, 2023 were circulated in advance of the meeting. Are there any errors or omissions to report? There being none, I'll accept a motion to adopt the minutes as circulated. So moved by Councilor Ward Russell, seconded by Councilor Elderkin. Any questions on the motion? Not, all in favor, signify by stating aye. Opposed, if any? The motion's carried unanimously. Item number 5 is the consent agenda. There are no consent agenda items for this evening's meeting. Item number 6, public and administrative presentation. There is one presentation this evening by Mr. Sebastian Hultberg, the director of the Southeast Regional Commission's Eco 360. Mr. Hultberg is here this evening to present on the topic of circular materials, a topic that requires our attention, and whether we inform the company that we are opting in or out of the program. Mr. Hultberg's presentation is scheduled to take approximately 20 minutes, after which he will entertain questions from councilors. I will note that our procedural bylaws provides that members of administration or external consultants and service providers are not subject to any presentation time limits, and that's in our procedural bylaws. So Mr. Hultberg, welcome. Great, thank you for coming. And
thank you.
Please proceed with your presentation.
I can just sit or stand.
You can do whichever you're more comfortable.
Or we can sit here. Very much back again, saying. Mayor Rashawn, thanks for having me, and council, thanks for the opportunity to come and talk trash, like I used to say, Eco 360 being the solid waste management organization. So, yeah, no, we really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. There's a new recycling program that's being implemented into the province here. And it will affect, we all know, everyone generates waste, so it affects everyone on a daily basis. So I'll do a quick introduction, then I'll talk about the new program, some timelines. Mayor Rashawn, you mentioned the municipalities requirement, or it falls on you to opt in or opt out. What are other municipalities in the province doing, and how has this been done elsewhere in Canada? And then we'll touch on the importance of a regional approach, followed by some questions. So Q&A period. So what's an extended producer responsibility in printed paper program? It's a mouthful, that's for sure, to say. So PPP stands for printed paper and packaging, and basically represents 99% of all the items you currently would put in a blue bag. It's really things you would buy in a grocery store, or when you go to a cafe or anything, like the box of Timbits there, for example, or cereal boxes, laundry detergent bottles, that kind of material. So anything that's packaging or printed paper. And what's a EPR program, an extended producer responsibility program? So that's a way of shifting the responsibility of recycling from taxpayers to industry. So when you buy goods as a consumer, you will pay a small hidden fee that will be collected by industry, and then that money will go towards funding the recycling program of that product. So similar to electronics or tires, when you buy those goods, there's a small little environmental fee, and it works just like that for those items. Now this will be applied to these type of items. You're not going to see the fee on the receipt, because it's going to be so fractional, but together, obviously, it's going to build up to a lot of money. Some people have been saying that industry will be paying for recycling. Sure, they are, but they get the money from the consumers. It's important to remember that. So basically, currently, we do recycling. We charge municipalities for the services, and you apply that to residents' tax base, right? That's going to somewhat change, whereas now the money will come, or the majority of the money will come from consumers that will pay industry, and then industry groups will pay for the program. So that's sort of how these programs work. So how did this program come to be, and what are the major stakeholders? So the Department of Environment, the local government, were the provincial entity that sort of set up the framework, the legislative framework for this new program. And then they gave that to Recycling New Brunswick to administer and implement. So what Recycling New Brunswick said it did was they took that, and then they went out for sort of public procurement for stewardship plans, which basically means industry groups could say, this is how we propose managing this new recycling program. And it was only one group that actually submitted a plan, and it's a group called Circular Materials. So subsequently, they were awarded the program by Recycling Brunswick. So Circular Materials is a group, it's a non-for-profit group, and they represent all the major producers and manufacturers and retailers in the country, like Loblaws, Costco, PepsiCo, Procter & Gamble, like very, very big players. This program does not really apply to corner stores and smaller retailers. So Circular Materials then submitted they went back and forth, they got some feedback on their plan, but ultimately their plan was approved earlier this year. So they're the organization that's actually charged to run this new program. Municipalities are affected because municipalities are mandated to do collection, right? So currently you own the collection contracts for the green, blue, and clear streams. This new program would only affected Blue Stream, but still, that's how municipalities are affected. The Service Commission, we accept the waste and we sort the waste, so that's how we are affected. So what kind of blue bag waste streams are included? Currently, you do single residential dwellings. This new program will also include apartment buildings, which is good because it's actually growing waste stream in our region. It's also going to include schools, but it will not include industrial and commercial and institutional waste. That's excluded from this program, as well as waste from public buildings. So that's also not part of this new program. So how are municipalities affected? So you have a decision to make where you have to either opt into the program or opt out. And that's really what we're going to focus on today. What that means, what are the pros and cons for each scenario, so that you're as well educated as you can be to take an objective approach here. So by opting in, you continue to provide the collection of the blue bag stream, but you sign a contract with Circular Materials. So you have to do it for their terms and conditions, but in return, you're gonna get a subsidy. So you get a revenue stream to cover that, or part of that cost to run the collection of just the blue bags. If you opt out, you say, no, we want out of the, we no longer want to collect the blue bags, we're just gonna do the green and declare. Then Circular Materials will have to negotiate with a hauler. They would start with the existing hauler, and if they can't make an agreement with them, then they go on and so on. So then it becomes the responsibility of someone else, not the municipality. How are we affected at the commission? Well, we would have to do the same, but for processing. So we will sign an agreement with Circular Materials that says we're going to sort all these blue bags to your terms and conditions, and in return, you're going to pay us X amount of dollars per ton. So we are going to sign an agreement. There's not really, there would be an option, but it's really not in our favor or the region's favor of us opting out, because it would lead to job loss and revenue loss and so on. So here's just a very brief description of timeline. So this program was really, they created two phases. The west part of the province was phase 1, and the phase 2 is the east part of the province, which we're part of. So the program was approved in the spring. By July 21st, all the municipalities in the western part of the province had to make their decision whether to opt in or opt out. November 1st, all the municipalities in the west that said yes, we're going to participate, they started the program November 1st. Early November this year, municipalities in our region would have gotten a first offer, or should have gotten an offer of what this service would look like. And the deadline to opt in or opt out is December 18th this year. And it's not the deadline for, say that you decide to opt in, you're not going to sign a contract on December 18th. It's a written intent of what way you're planning on going. If you decide to opt in, they are expecting you to sign a contract end of January next year. And if you do opt in, you would roll into the program in May next year, and that's when you would start receiving subsidy. If you don't opt in, if you opt out, then Circular Materials says we need 6 more months to negotiate with your haulers to try and reach an agreement. So we're only going to roll you into your residents would only be in the program in November next year. And obviously, if you opt out, you don't receive any subsidy. And then in 2027, the plan will renew. We don't know all the details yet because it has not been presented, the new plan in 27. But what we hear is that even if you opt out or opt in, come 2027, they will go for collection contracts on a much bigger scale. So we hope to be able to bid as a region at that point, but the individual municipalities would stop receiving subsidy in 2027. All right. I'm just going to take that little sip of water. So opting in is, like I said earlier, you become a service provider. you become responsible to collect the blue bag. You're gonna get a subsidy of $31.37 per household. And you start in May next year. Yes,
It uses the word become, but we already are.
you already are, but currently you're the owner of the contract. And the hauler is sort of the service provider, right? In this new arrangement, Circular Materials is the owner, you become the service provider, and then you can still contract out but that's sort of like a subcontract at the time. But yes, you would just continue doing what you're doing essentially and receive money for it. So this is just how they came up with the offer. It's important. The main portion of it is $29 for the actual collection. Contract administration is 87 cents. Promotion and education is worth about $1.50 per household. So that's how they arrive at the $31.37. I forgot to check it just before I left how many households you are in the municipality. But
Oh, I don't. know.
okay, I'm just trying to see how much this would be worth, but that's something we can send you.
And that's per
Per year,
per year.
yeah. So say, for example, you would, just as an example, if you had,
Alma, 200, not much money, eh?
no, it's not a lot of money. But say that you would have, say 1,000 households, then it's worth 30,000 a year. But it's money you don't have currently, right? So what would be some of the benefits by opting in? You would keep a bit more control than versus opting out, and you would also be able to, Eco360 would have a bit more control over the program. Sort of parallel discussions that down the road, we hope to be able to help with the collection contract. So if opting in would allow us to continue its free stream collection contract, which gives you more economies of scale, but opting out would really provide that option. You have control over collection schedule. So what that means is that if you opt in, it just continues the way it is now. Every week, they come and pick up the green, and then they alternate between the green, the blue and clear on the same days, right? But if you opt out and they fail to reach an agreement with the current service provider and they have to go to someone else, it could mean that you have 2 garbage days per week, for example. That could be a reality. That's why we think it's the most seamless implementation for the residents by opting in. It would also allow Eco360 to be the only organization that provides marketing and education and outreach for solid waste. The last point is actually true for both cases. So what are some of the risks by opting in? So Circular Materials have very strict contamination targets. They originally, when they started talking about this in the early summer, it was 3%. And if you had more than 3% contamination in the bags, like say that a truck would arrive at our facility by more than 3%, you could get charged $1,500 as a fine per truck. But they said, no, that's not really how it's going to be applied. You have this document that lists how you arrive at, it's really only after 18 to 24 months without doing anything. That's when you get a penalty. But in the beginning, they just said it. They wouldn't actually include it in the agreements. They have since changed, and now that protocol document is part of the legal agreement. So that's a big update. But there is still a risk that municipalities could be charged penalties if we don't continuously show improvement of contamination. So that's what we mean with the financial penalties. It's a new program, so Eco360 would have to do a bit more work to inform residents about this new program, but it would be not that much. And then the contracts are also written very one-sided, like in favor of Circular Materials in many aspects. So there's some legal risk exposure just by signing an agreement like that.
So if you're okay?
Yeah.
So the word contamination,
Yeah.
what does this mean exactly?
Clear garbage in the blue. That's,
So,
Good
exactly,
say.
so for example, if you would throw a diaper in the blue bag, for example, that would be contamination. Currently, we consider any material that we can't recycle contamination, so. For example, chip bags or candy wrappers, there's no recycling market for that. But it is packaging, so circular materials will not tell you to put it in the blue bag, but if it ends up in the blue bag, it won't get counted as contamination, but it is now.
Okay, well, but. So I understand that, but what about if it's your tomato canned tomato can that hasn't been nicely rinsed? So that there's residue of tomatoes in the can, is that contamination?
No, that's a great question, we get that often, so we know we need to do a bit better about informing around that, that would not be considered contamination. As long as it doesn't really like spill out and like soils everything in the blue bag, it's fine. So opting out, then the program starts 6 months later, Circular Materials is responsible for collection. The customer service will actually be the responsibility by the hauler. So not the municipality, not the Eco360, not Circular Materials. It's the hauler that would have to answer the call to your residents if they have an issue with the blue bags. They would also be responsible for the marketing and education of this new program. And there is no subsidy.
Sorry,
Yeah.
does that mean that the contamination now happens curbside?
Now it becomes the responsibility of the hauler to
Yeah,
reduce.
so does that mean that? So what happens, you've got the resident who's contaminating.
Yeah.
Right now, if you opt in, the resident contaminating, it gets to Eco360, we get a fine, it comes back to the municipality where the residents are. What happens when you opt out?
So basically how this would work is every 6 months, they're gonna do a range of audits of the material. And then they will communicate that to us in the municipality. This is your contamination rate. If it's too far from 3%, you're gonna have to implement some sort of program. So Eco360 would then say, okay, this is how we propose, like massive education campaign, maybe to go out and like really talk to people door to door, but at first, not confrontational at all, and and then you implement another 6 months to see that did this program help? And only after 3 failed programs, and it's not reaching 3%, it's maybe going from 20 to 18%, that's still success. Only if you fail to do that, then you would be applied penalties. So that's why it's 18 to 24 months. But if you opt in, that's something we and the municipalities can work on together. If you opt out, the hauler is responsible to reduce contamination. So they could 6 months from now, just go around and start leaving bags in the curb. And then if people are upset, they call you as elected officials and say, my bags are not collected. Then you have no say. You've given up that responsibility and right to change to the hauler. It's important, like, it could be a benefit and a risk at the same time, right? Hopefully that answered your question. So what are the benefits by opting out? Well, there's no legal risk because you don't sign an agreement. There are some potential cost savings, because if you stop collecting the blue bags, well, you reduce about 25% of the weight collected in your contract, but your truck still have to go out every week, making all the same stops and going the same mileage because it has to collect the green bags. And then every second week also declare. So maybe some reduced collection costs, but nowhere near the revenue you would be getting from Circular Materials from opting in. Resource savings, we listed it, but in reality, it's going to be very small. So currently, if someone calls and they have questions about the waste collection, that would require some resource to handle. If you remove the blue bags, you may reduce it a little bit, but you still have the agreement and clear streams to manage. And then all the education of the new program would be by Circular Materials. So what would be the risks? So the benefits were, it's less work, it's less legal risk, but what are the risks by opting out? So to my point earlier, you would have no say in the enforcement campaigns. There could be disruptions to the waste collection schedules. The savings would not outweigh the subsidy amount you would get from circular materials. It could be lead to confusion for residents because Eco 360 would communicate for the garbage stream and the composting stream, and then you would have another organization sending out information associated with the recycling program. Reduced transparency, what we mean with that is if you give me a call or one of my colleagues a call, I need, how much do you collect in November? Well, I can give you that almost on the fly or within the same day. We don't know what level of transparency and reporting other than what they're legally required to do that this organization would do. Less control over where the material is sent for processing. It's not so crucial for us in this region, but in the western part of the province, there were some municipalities that opted out, and the facilities that used to receive this waste may no longer receive it for sorting. It might go to us or it might go to another facility, but it's really up to circular materials to dictate where it goes for processing if you opt out. Cards versus bags. This program down the road, like past 2027, may still lead to cards, but currently, if you opt in, you can keep the bags. But if you opt out, then it becomes the hauler that might say, no, we want cards or we want to keep the bags, but it's out of your control at that time. So to us, this is sort of what it boils down to. Opting in is the financially best option. It allows Eco 360 to remain the sort of one-stop shop for everything waste. It's less confusing for residents, but it requires more work by the municipality, or in reality, it would be more work by Eco 360. So once we know the full scope of that, we would have to see what kind of resources we need, and there are some financial and legal risks. Opting out, much less risk, less work, but it would not financially, you would be on the losing end compared to opting in. So opting out could also lead to multiple waste collection days per week. Currently, we have one sorting guide, one sorting calendar, and one sorting app. But if you opt out, that could lead to maybe having 2 calendars on the fridge and things like that. And less control, although only really when it comes to like the education part of it, and maybe less transparency. So how has this been dealt with elsewhere in the province? So phase 1, out of the entire western part of the province, only 7 municipalities opted in. Actually, that dropped to 6 just recently. So what that means is, I think it's the Restigouche, the municipalities around the Restigouche area, so Camelton, they opted in, and then there were 2 around Woodstock. All the other areas, including the province or the rural districts, opted out. So we're like, why? That's a good question to ask. Why was there so many vast majority opted out? So we all know this program was announced in the spring, in April or May, and they had to decide by July. So it's a very short time frame. Like even for us, we had 6 more months, and it still feels like it's rushed. So they were on a very tight timeline. The contamination issue was much more of a risk at the time because it was really, the legal agreement said that you could be charged $1,500 per truck right away. But now it's only after 18 to 24 months, it's a transparent procedure. Also, some regions in the West have no collection of organics, voluntary recycling programs, whereas we are doing a lot more here. We're doing a much more proactive, we've taken a much more proactive approach on waste management for decades. So it's hard to compare apples to apples. And the municipal reform. There were strategic plans, new municipal boundaries. There were a lot of mental bandwidth spent on the municipal reform early summer. So dealing with the new recycling program was maybe not on elected officials' front burner. So what about phase two, which is basically our part? It's the complete flip side. So you have the Acadian Peninsula, they're considering opting in as a region. The Shallow, so the Bathurst and the surrounding area are also planning on opting in. Miramichi probably opting out. Kent, so the Bouctouche and the coast, they're all opting in. Kings, which is the Sussex area, from a bit more vague, but from what we heard, it seems like they're opting in as well. And then what about Westmoreland and Albert, our commission? So Moncton is leaning out. Dieppe and Riverview are sort of considering both options. And then from what we heard from all the other municipalities, and I think Chedak already opted in, are all opting in. So that's what we hear from our commission. So only Moncton and maybe Dieppe and Riverview are out, whereas the other municipalities, what we heard is strongly leaning in favor of opting in. And what about the rest of the country? New Brunswick was not the first. They started in BC, just 2011 or 12, and then it sort of came east. Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta is working on a program now. Ontario and Quebec are going through the same. And our program is set up by the same individuals that started the BC program. So we've talked to them, and we've talked to municipalities out in BC to basically see, and it's almost impossible to get to 3% contamination. So does that mean that everyone's getting penalties even after 10, 12 years? Not, it's achieving 3%. No, it's very rare, and it's only where municipalities or haulers have blatantly not cared. So it's only in those instances where penalties are applied, based on our research. Nova Scotia is about to come online as well in 2025 or so, and then they expect Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland and Labrador to come shortly thereafter. So finally, just talking about the regional approach. I'm not here to sway you one way or the other. I really just want to provide the information that we have and then the way we see it. Each municipality is different, different risk tolerances, different approach to waste management. So we totally get that, and that's just the nature of each municipality being different. We still think that the more municipalities that take the same approach, the better. We know that it's not going to be across the entire region, because we already know that Moncton is leaning out, others are strongly leaning in. But the more that takes the same decision, the better, because it will allow us to operate as one, right? Like we will be able to structure our education information the same way, instead of having a sort of disjointed program across our region. And we've always done a lot in our region. We're seen as a leader provincially when it comes to waste management and waste diversion. And that's something that we've taken pride in. I should say that the rural district, to say that there's a rural district that's surrounded by municipalities that opt in, even though the province opted out, they would then change and follow suit. So that sort of concludes the presentation. I think maybe I went over 20 minutes. It happens easily, but really, I hope you have some questions, because I think it's really important that we get this straight. I don't have all the answers, because the program is really by someone else. They're setting the direction, but.
Well, thank you very much, Sebastian. I'll go around the room. This is about the 5th time I made this presentation, and you always get something a little bit more in depth when you have a better understanding. That the purpose of having Sebastian here explaining this is so that we make an informed decision, because ultimately we have to make it, and it has to be made before the 18th. So that we can communicate to circular materials. So we'll go around the room. Councillor Coates, do you have any questions for Sebastian?
Right now, the former LSD a contract up until, I believe, January 25. What would the haulers, would have to renegotiate a contract with him?
So if you, the way we understand it, if you opt, because currently you as a municipality are paying for that through the. Through the,
Tactic,
yeah, exactly. So it is you own the decision over that region, because it's not, it's incorporated into the municipality. There is some confusion on how it actually would work logistically. But as the hauler's job would not change, right? So you would simply just start receiving the subsidy. And then you just continue doing what you're doing. That's how we understand it. But again.
But if we opted out, what happens contractually? The contract is here, you're talking about goes to 2025.
Right,
You opt out, you don't need to pick up anymore in 2024.
you would have to try and renegotiate the contract or pay for it, and they would just do less. I don't know,
I think as Sebastian pointed out, even if we opt out and they go to a separate collection day, the garbage truck still has to go weekly. Only they will not be picking up the blue garbage. They'll still have a collection.
Well, I want to skip, when we get to me, I'm gonna
Yeah,
sure talk about that.
Sure. Good question.
Okay, good.
Just a couple things. Do you know how we rate right now in Funding Albert for penis and our blue bags?
I believe we're on average somewhere around 20%,
20% current.
20 to 25%, yeah.
The only thing else I would ask, and I've been just talking to some people here, is that I understand from the other municipalities, the larger ones around us, their hauler is giving them a credit to opt out.
Yes, I believe that's the case for the large municipalities.
So I'm just curious if that option would be granted to us as well, or if there would be.
Since that's really between you and the hauler, like we are not part of that contract, but you can
I
raise it
understand.
with them.
Yeah, I understand that the credit is very similar to what is being offered if you opt in. There might be a little bit less, but based on the education that would be involved, they're saying it's worth it to do it that way. And I guess that would just lead me to my last comment would be, I would be concerned with the workload of providing adequate education to our residents. So. I'll leave it at that.
So Lyon.
Thank you, Sebastian. My concern with contamination of 3% is typically a low number. But that's based on per truck. Is not based on per household.
Right, so basically what it is, they will, Circular Materials from our entire region will be doing 4 audits per week. And at an auditing center, and then they're gonna file averages. And that's how they determine over a 6-month period what the contamination for each municipality is. And then they would communicate those results, and then if they determine, like, we know that we have work to do. So we would come up with a plan, discuss it with Circular Materials. They have to agree to the plan, then you implement it. And then you evaluate the results following the next 6-month period. And if you saw improvements, they will tell you to continue doing what you're doing because it's leading to proper change. If it's not going the right direction, they're gonna ask for more in the next plan. And only after 3 consecutively failed plans, doesn't mean that you're gonna go from 2025 to 3. Like I said, it might just go from 20 to 18. As long as the 3% is really a target, and they set it at 3% so that you will always try and improve. That's how it's communicated to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jonah.
On the west side, it says 6 opted in. How many opted in? Did you know
There's a lot, it's the vast majority that opted out, so. All around the Fundy, so St. John area, down towards St. Stephen, Fredericton, Edmonton. Gotcha.
So in regard to the residents, right now, we've been doing the green, clear and blue for a while, and we kind of got it figured out.
Yeah,
So under this new program, if the resident has a piece of trash. And trying to keep the blue as good as possible, when in doubt, throw it into the clear,
right.
which is gonna go into the landfill. To me, this seems like a step backwards, what Eco 360 has been doing, trying to keep stuff out of the landfill. It seems like there's gonna be more going back into the landfill. This program.
That is a concern that we raised as well during the feedback period. And we are like, and there's some packaging that, like I mentioned earlier, it's not recyclable, even though it's packaging. It will be ending up in the landfill, but we won't get any subsidy from that, right? So the more people, if the education campaign is poor, more people throw stuff in the trash, it ends up in the landfill. We need to create more landfill cells more often, and it's gonna cost our stakeholders more, which is really ultimately the residents. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Elderton.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciate all the questions that the other councillors have asked. So if we choose not to opt in at this moment in time, there's no other opt-in opportunity? Is that what I'm hearing?
So that's what we've been told, that until 2027, if you opt out, you can't opt in. And in 2027, it would only be sort of on a regional scale. So it could be the commission or subgroups of municipalities, but we haven't seen what these boundaries would look like. We've been told that it could be the commission boundaries, because that would sort of be favorable. It would be 12, 13 contracts in the province, and that's sort of good, but again, we don't know. Circular Materials have consistently given a little bit more information all along, so we don't really know, but what we can tell for sure is that between now and 2027, you will not be able to opt back in if you opt out first.
So it's not up to negotiate till 2026.
Right.
Thank you.
Councillor
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Do you know why Moncton, who's, you know, a key player in the Southeast Regional Service Commission and the originator of the Westmoreland Outlet Waste Facility, why are they not here?
So I will say what I know, but obviously you might get more information if you reach out to them. They are getting some sort of credit from their hauler. And they felt the difference in revenue that they would get by opting in versus opting out was not worth the added legal risk. That's how we interpret their communication. But
So if you opt out, then does it not open an opportunity? Like right now, your clear bag is only picked up every 2 weeks.
correct.
And the blue bag is picked up every 2 weeks, but the alternate week.
Yep.
And it's only the green bag that's every week. I know from my household, we periodically miss garbage day for whatever reason, and we managed to make it to the second week with our green bag stockpile. Is opting out not opening up a possibility that actually we go to waste collection at half the frequency we're currently doing? That's a huge reduction. That's a 50% reduction for what's a minor, like, that's what I'm saying. That's for Almas, that would be the $30 times 200 is $600 a year, but it's costing us a lot more money than that to collect garbage. So could we not immediately go down by half in terms of our waste collection?
I guess my answer to that would be, that would have to be a conversation with the hauler. And if the hauler says, okay, then it might be a possibility. If the hauler says no. And then the other thing too, is if Circular Materials negotiates with the hauler that we have, they're gonna be going twice. Mind you, they would only be picking up the recyclables. Yeah, so, I mean, it all depends. But I don't know the answer.
Well, and as you know, in this community, actually, we collect garbage in two distinctly different ways. Some of our parts of our community are collected by a third party.
Mhm.
And in other parts, for instance, here, is collected by our own municipal employees with using our own municipal trucks, right? So we're not consistent. What bothers me about the time, December 18, is for us to opt out. You know, I raised these questions and you're going, we would need to find out. Well, I agree with you. And not only that, legally with our provider, this goes back to Councillor Coates' question. We already have these collection agreements for when it's the third party that are extended to. When is it, the end of 2024, end of 2025?
January 2025.
So we need
In the
to,
local service.
we need to find out the legal ramifications from our hauler to break the contract if we opt out. Right? That they may say, you can opt out if you want, but your contract is still valid and you're gonna pay us until it's over.
That's a potential.
So what, we got 11 days? No, we got more than that, 13 days to figure it out.
Right.
And so,
It's kind of ridiculous, really, right?
So-
We're left in
Now,
13 days.
Now, Sebastian has mentioned before that there may be an extension to. that.
we thought so,
No.
and then.
They said no.
They just reverted on
Okay,
that.
all right.
So they're gonna hold you to the December 18th deadline.
So in terms of informed decision making, I don't think we have all the information that we need. Because to
Yeah.
opt in, we've got all the information. To opt out, though, we don't have all the.
And if we don't provide them an answer by the 18th, we're automatically off the day.
That's how that's how we understand it.
That's how I've understood it right from the beginning.
Yeah, you're sort of like,
You really don't have the answer to opt in because you don't know what the third party contractor is gonna charge.
No, opting in is basically staying. status quo.
change it.
Status quo.
Status quo. We know exactly what
Yeah.
that entails.
So I guess opting out could cost you the same or less, depending on what the existing contract does.
And if you only picked up at half frequency, it could cost you way less. Because what is that, like, you just doing it?
I would be really surprised if.
They're not changing the-
Agreed to reduce their schedule to half.
They are not changing, when you say reduce the frequency, do you mean like just picking
No,
up?
of ours. If you opt out,
Yeah,
someone else is picking up the blue
Yeah.
every 2 weeks.
right,
That's done. So now it's either we're picking up the clear every week now, because that's the frequency of the green.
Oh.
Or you see what I'm saying? Or we just say, no, we're not picking up every week. We're picking up only every 2 weeks,
You still have to pick up your green every week.
but maybe you don't. That's my
That's
point.
gonna
I
say,
don't wanna keep it for 2 weeks.
yeah.
that would be
That's a
the
very
thing about that's,
Your family, bigger family would have more volume.
Okay, so then what we would be doing is making sure we're picking up every week because of the green. Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, so from my perspective, like I said, I've heard this presentation like 5 times. I look at it from the end user's perspective. Now, I ask these questions over and over again, and from an environmental stewardship perspective. By opting out, you let the other person deal with it. A couple of things happen. One is that not all materials that are going to Eco 360 right now would qualify as recyclable materials. So those automatically would get diverted to the landfill. So you're increasing the amount of trash that goes to the landfill because there are a number of materials that Eco 360 are currently recycling that this program will not accept.
What would
I
be the
believe-
example?
example would be small electronics, for example, if you throw a toaster in the blue bag, that would get recycled, but that would no longer be recycled under the new program.
Is there typical household waste like milk cartons and those types of things?
That's still included in the program.
That is
It's
still.
so that the amount of waste or recyclable material that would currently accept that would no longer be accepted would be fraction, like it's not a large volume.
Right.
And there is some, but
And then the other thing by opting out, the concern I would have is by opting out, if the hauler starts saying. Well, you've got too much mixed garbage in your bag, they leave your bag at the curb, where do those bags end up?
In the clear.
Or they end up in a ditch somewhere. That's my concern from an environmental stewardship perspective. There's already a fair amount of garbage that's ending up in our ditches and in our back roads. Like, I would not want to see that happen. like, so from an end user perspective, the customer now may have to worry about 2 separate garbage days for garbage collection. I see the benefit following suit with, and this is my personal perspective, I see a benefit in continuing on, allowing Eco360 to manage this for us. For 2024, we would get a financial subsidy for 2024, whether that would carry forward or whether we would have to give some of that subsidy to Eco360 in following years. We really don't know the answer to that question yet. But if we opt out, it certainly takes the onus off the municipality. We let the hauler look after it and circular materials. I'm just a bit concerned from an environmental stewardship perspective, we'll end up happening. So but ultimately, we do have to, I mean, we can make a call to our haulers right now to see if there would be any savings for 2024, but I don't know the exact terms of the contract. If they turn around and say no, then we do have, regardless of what they say, we have a decision to make. Because if we do not respond in writing by December 18th, we will deem to have opted out and we can no longer opt back in. That's what I understand.
Right.
But if they're giving 3 larger municipalities around us a credit, then why would they not give us a credit?
We would have to ask them the question.
So I think that question is being asked.
Okay. So we'll ask the question and then we'll defer a decision. We will have to, well, if we are going to get a credit and we are going to opt out, then we don't need to do anything. And then we'll be deemed to have opted out, and then it's out of our hands. If we opt in, the decision needs to be made before we need to and convey a certain limitations. Okay. Any other questions for Sebastian? Well, thank you very much for your presentation. Very much appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
Every time I hear it, I get something, a little bit more information. So thank you very much. And just going to, gentlemen, could you just press the blue button on that to shut the? You have to press it again. There we go. All right. So thank you very much. Get it organized. So I assume from our conversation, we want to get the additional information. Am I correct? Okay. So we'll do that. We do have 2 people who have registered for 2-minute presentations. The first one is Mrs. Jane Christopher on custodial duties. Mrs. Christopher, if you'd like to come forward if you want, or stand up and stay there, that's fine.
Well, I am reminding council about some concerns that were addressed in letter to the council recently. There were 2 events, the Alma Activity Center. We had the Remembrance Day services, and then we had the big announcement with all the government representatives for our water system. And those folks who helped organize and host those events noticed quite a few custodial issues and user discrepancies, I guess, or infractions or whatever could be described for making that a really pleasant experience for those organizing it and attending. Likewise, in this facility, you may have noticed the trash as you walk in and the bathroom trash is full. So the question and to bring to your attention, in addition to the letters that had been sent by the concerned people, are what can you tell us about the custodial responsibilities for our municipal public spaces? There were several things noticed, especially in the Alma Activity Center, for cleanliness, making that facility user-friendly for those who are not familiar with the facility, for lighting, electrical needs in the kitchen, and primarily cleanliness. It's a probably a health matter in the state of the cleanliness in the kitchen at the activity center. And just aesthetically, making it a welcoming space for any user that's renting it or any municipal function that's hosting and inviting people into those facilities. So to follow up with the letters that were sent and to bring it further to your attention and hope that you can address that and get some insight to what is expected from the municipality that's offering those spaces and for users that will be paying money and renting those spaces.
Thank you, Mrs. Christopher. Does anyone have any questions for Mrs. Christopher? Councillor Jonah?
No questions, but if this is going on, it needs fixed. I completely agree with you.
Councillor Elderton?
No, I think we've already determined that there's some duties that we need to reassess, and I think it's came to light a little late, but you know, the former municipality of Hillsborough really doesn't have buildings to maintain. So it's the former villages of Riverside, Albert, and Elma that there needs to be some sort of communication to say this is part of their duties. Not disagreeing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Elderton.
No,
Councillor
sir. Thank you very much, Jane, for the issue of custodial services in the community. We know is we need to get to the bottom of this. It's the options are either we do it ourselves or it's third party. Doing nothing the way it's kind of been for much of this year is unacceptable. Linked to this, by the way, one of the reasons I was late arriving to this meeting, I thought I would check the snowplow to the entrance of the same building which is right across the street. And because I was personally received feedback before that users had gone and they couldn't get into the building. I remember you know about that, Jane? We're in the same boat again today, just now. So we're working on it. Let's put it that way. And it's recognized and it's linked to levels of service and quality of levels of service throughout. And it's part of our budget deliberations that are underway for 2024 because we need to have the money available to pay for the services that we need.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Earl. Councillor Coates?
Not too much to say, but I was told that our treasurer was out cleaning the snow off the steps in the village of Riverside Elm. I don't think that's a job that our treasurer should be doing. Somebody should be looking after it, so. Custodians, yes, we do. And both, so, didn't mean to both, all three, really, because we do share the washroom in the library, and then the office.
Okay, thank you very much. And Councillor Ward Russell?
Thank you. Appreciate your concerns and, you know, I acknowledge them and understand them. And I can only hope that we can move forward with no comment works for everyone. So I think this should be a discussion that we continue to have with Public Works to make sure that it is on the radar. And if not, then I would agree with Councillor Arrow that we need to find the right body to do that.
Great, thank you. Councillor Lamb?
I agree with everything on the table. We have an issue that needs to be addressed. And like John said, it is in the budget. It's got to cover that coming forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And from my perspective, Mrs. Christopher, your comments are on point. I know you and I have had brief conversations about that. I don't know what the answer is, but we have to find an answer. That's what you're paying us to do, is to find a response, and whether that is an assignment of specific duties to our public works employees, or whether it's more practical to hire a custodian in each one of the communities to do that. But that requires, you pay either way. You either pay one of our public works employees to do it, or you pay a custodian on a contractual basis. So that's the deliberations that council are going to have. So thank you very much for your comments. Thank you. The second presentation is by, there's two names here, so I will give you each 2 minutes. And that's Mr. David Knickel and Jason Steves, and it's on taxes for Fundy Albert. So Mr. Knickel, if you'd like to go first, you do have 2 minutes.
Yeah, like your worship, councilors, thank you very much for the time to speak. Look, at my name is David Knickel. I live in Dawson. I've been there for about 7 years. I know that amalgamation and taxation was kind of given to you guys. I'm gonna paraphrase, I have a letter here. And then but there was no real response back to the province saying we agree or disagree, so therefore we were left with what happened, right? That in the case of my LSP was a potentially, you can correct me after the fact, 13% increase, lower property LSP, 9.26% increase, Hopewell, 3.83% increase, Elma LSP, 5.1% increase, and Harvey LSP, about 1% increase. For municipalities, Hillsborough, just under 1% down, Riverside, 2.8% down, and Elma, about 0.5% down. So these are our questions, and I don't expect answers to all these, really a commitment maybe to number 5, okay? So given the significant tax increases we've had to endure with amalgamation, what additional services are we receiving to justify the increases and in what proportions are they being paid for by each LSD? I don't have that information, we don't understand it, none of us do that live out there. As we have yet to see additional services, what extra money we were charged, what the extra money we are charged paying for, and in what proportions are they being paid for by each LSD or former municipality? Number 3, how are the costs for proportionally shared services with the LSDs divided, given the far left population base in the LSDs? And I might be off on that. My research, I couldn't really get accurate numbers on the how it all divided and where everything went. So my apologies if that I'm off on that one. As an outlying LSD near Hillsborough, will we be expected to continue to bear the burden of the costs in all 3 municipalities for services that we do not receive in our LSD? Okay. The number 5 is really the only one. Will this council work for a more balanced approach and proportional equitable distribution of taxation based on population served for the levels provided services? And, you know, that's all I got. I do have the rest of the letter, which you guys can.
Thank you very much. I did receive a couple of letters. I'm quite aware of the content of the letters.
Yeah.
I'll let Mr. Steve speak, and then I'll provide a couple of comments, recognizing that we, Councillor Coates and I, already have a meeting scheduled with you and Mr. Steves on Thursday evening. So we'll be able to go into more depth in terms of answering some of the questions that you have.
My hope was just that give councillor time to wrap their head around what is going to end up being given to them in upcoming debates, and you know what a lot of us are talking about at the end of the week.
Any comments for Mr. Kinnick before we go on to Mr. Steves? Councillor Jones, do you have any questions? Councillor Elderkin?
No, thank you very much.
Councillor Arrow?
Well, I would make a comment that your concern, actually, the more you will learn,
Yes.
the more concerned you're gonna get, in my view. Because in fact, the LSD areas, although they are experiencing tax increase like you're seeing, their tax rates are radically lower than the former 3 municipalities.
I disagree with that.
And so what's happening, and it's really mandated by the province and equality, is the LSD tax rates are going like this.
Yes.
And the former municipalities are holding kind of steady.
Yes.
And over time, they're coming up closer and closer. So, in fact, for this year, 2023,
Yes.
the 3 former municipalities are bankrolling the LSDs of this community by almost $300,000. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but that'll all come out in your meeting.
That's all part of the part of the process.
Yeah, so it's good that the questions you asked are good, and the community at large needs to become better informed on this. But the ultimate reality is going to be even more troubling.
Yeah, well, you know, I see what you're saying, and I respect that, you know, but we do not have a tremendously large amount of services. We have pretty minimal service. We don't have water infrastructure. We don't have sewer infrastructure. We don't have a lot of things. We don't have lights going down the roads. You know, a lot of costs that are recurring costs that cost a lot of money. We do have costs, definitely. We got fire. We got policing, we got garbage. Just got an education on garbage this year. And, you know, and I know that this whole amalgamation was supposed to reduce costs on the administration side. But I know that we're gonna have to assume some costs, some shared costs over on the administrative side, so I'm aware there's shared services there. All I wanna, we, and Jason, I just wanna make sure that the LSDs are only proportionally paying what we're due. Right, and if that can be proven to those people in the LSDs, absolutely, we're gonna accept it, because we all gotta pay our fair share to have a successful municipality, right? In all honesty, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Coates.
Thanks, Dave. I hope to have a good meeting on Thursday night and, we'll discuss some of the things, but, being a resident of the LSD, also, for quite a few years, I won't say how many, but nineteen 91, I had a piece of, building lot. I paid $1.91 for taxes, and LSD in 2021. The assessment went up to $5,400, I paid $91.07.
Yes,
So in 20 years, we went up quite a bit,
yes.
if you take it to that. And I don't see we're gonna get off any cheaper. We may be able to get some more services, we'll work on that.
I do, thank you for those comments. It's really hard right revenue now, and you see, you know, personally me 13%, and then you see other people
Yeah.
not get any raise. And it doesn't seem fair from a perspective where you don't know where it's coming from, when all we all want to do is just pay our fair share. That's all.
Councillor Russell.
I think it's important that, and all of us sitting around these tables tonight, that we all understand that we all represent some sort of an LSD. So it doesn't matter if you're in Ward 1 or 2, you also have an LSD residence in there as well.
Yeah.
So, and also with that, I mean, you have to understand that LSDs don't have the same services as what the other 3 former villages did have or do have. I think it's important that a balanced budget is needed within the LSD, so I would have, you know, voice my opinion on it, I will continue to do so as we move forward. So I would like to remind us that just did some calculations that the Coverdale LSD alone pays over 36% of the overall fire budget for all of funding offered. So those are pretty huge numbers coming from an LSD.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Councillor Land.
Thank you for your concern. Hopefully there's some insight numbers. We thought going around this table of what's compared to the LFD, what's compared to the municipality.
Yes.
And I think once you get the information, you will be more comfortable. But in the end, they're probably going to increase somewhat.
I don't do taxes never been.
No.
You know, guys, it's just, you know, I'm not so naive to think taxes are going down. Well, I mean, you know, the future increases that, you know, there's proportional representation in what.
But if you know the information, I think that'd be more.
It's gonna make it a lot easier.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not gonna try to jump too much into the conversation that we're gonna have on Thursday night, but generally speaking, my goal on Thursday night will be to show you.
Yeah.
What those services are that you're now paying for example, and these are just examples. The cost of administration for the local government. So where you didn't have to pay for that in the past, you now have to pay.
Absolutely.
The cost of the council, that is a shared service. It's shared equally across the board through all the 8 subunits.
Yes.
The cost of the hockey rink, this building, the recreational facilities that you never had to pay for before.
Yes.
You now have to share in some of that cost. Now, who made the decision? We'll leave that to the politicians to decide. But ultimately, we were not, I want to make it perfectly clear, and I think I have on numerous occasions during previous council meetings, even in the former incorporated municipalities that I was mayor of, I made the comment that we were never allowed to look at it. We were never allowed to input into it. It was, we were told, this is your budget, period. So I have heard comments about, why didn't you voice your opposition to it? We voiced the opposition to not being part and parcel to the discussions. That was ignored, the budget was set. But now, going forward, we have a tremendous amount of say in terms of what
That's what I'm.
will happen, what will happen.
That's what a lot of.
If I look, I don't disagree with the numbers that you provided, but if I look at what my preference would have been not to reduce the village tax rates, to leave them the same, because it gives the perception that we're going down and you're going up. But if you look at having to share in some of the costs that, for example, the Hillsborough Arena,
Yes.
it's only the residents of the village, the former village of Hillsborough, that had to pay for the cost of the arena. However, if you look at who the users are in Hillsborough minor hockey,
Yes.
many are from outside in the local service.
Told our LSD for sure.
Right, so that's one of the reasons why you're now paying for more, but I will point out what Councillor Earl said. Is that over time, and he's correct, if you look at the amount of subsidization that's being done still by the former incorporated municipalities, it's to the tune of 286,000 for 2023. The idea behind that was that the government said, we're not going to increase any of the former local service districts' tax rates more than 5 cents. So that's what contributed to that. So they say you can increase it by 5 cents per year. Now they've changed it so that only certain things are subject to that 5% cap. So we'll have more of an informed conversation on Thursday night. Hopefully you'll walk away from that with a better feel. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't like paying taxes anymore than
No.
anybody else.
Death and taxes. They would do that,
Right.
you know, for sure is like that. But the, you know, just in a final closing, is, you know, I know that there has to be some rebalancing. I get that. But you cannot say to somebody in an LSP with reduced, what they get, that there will ever be an equal.
And what I will close by saying is, maybe I don't know if that's what Councillor Arrow was trying to get, you will never pay the same rate as a former incorporated municipality. Because we have public works that are looking after our streets, whereas you don't have that, you will never pay for it. You will never pay for a service that you don't receive or benefit.
And that's what I think a lot of us don't understand, is that we don't see it always as a big, huge number. And for me, it was an overall with the part of the assessment increase. For me, it was a 25% increase in my taxes in 1 year. Right, and there's a lot of people like that, right? And so, and people are getting way more than that. I was at least held by the 10%.
The assessment on my home as an example, I don't mind sharing this, the assessment on my home last year went up $130,000. It was capped at 10%.
Yes.
But I expect that next year is gonna go up another 10%,
No,
and another 10% until we catch up.
Yeah.
But it increased 1 year by $130,000.
Hopefully Dawson keeps building and we keep contributing.
Well, that's one of the benefits, when people build in some of the outlying communities, it helps reduce the burden on.
We love being out there and we want to stay there for as long as we can. So
Sure.
hopefully you guys can help us.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Steves.
I was actually just here to pay Paul, but he's gonna make it, so he's hit on everything and with that, more informal on Thursday.
Great, look forward to the conversation. All right, thank you very much. So reports and recommendations from committees and private meetings, unless someone here has anything, I don't have anything to report. And there are no recommendations from committees and private meetings. Nothing. Moving on, reports from administration. So we do have a number of items and they're identified on the agenda. A is our interim administrator report, and I would remind everybody that our interim administrator is only working half days, so we need to be mindful of the amount of work that individual can produce. The interim administrator has been corresponding considerably with Englobe Engineering, the Hillsborough Public Library Board, completion of Statistics Canada survey on critical infrastructure, and dealing with the Department of Environment on an environment-related complaint in our community. There's also a significant amount of work being done on formalizing insurance coverage for the municipality, options for solid waste collection, animal control provisions, and other day-to-day requests that keep coming through that CAO email address. And I can assure you there are many. So that's the update for our interim administrator. Item number B, 8B is the 2024 budget process update. So we talked about budget taxes. Well, here's the latest on the budget. So I have seen on social media that people are saying that council was here to finalize the budget tonight. That's not the case. Council continues to work toward the establishment and approval of the 2024 general operating budget and the utility budgets for the 3 former incorporated municipalities. Council has met once already and is meeting again this Friday to explore ways of looking at costs, possibly reducing costs, looking at what our needs are for the municipality. It's always a balancing act between whether we increase the amount of service and increase the taxes, or reducing the amount of service and reducing taxes. One important element of the budget process is the inclusion of the former incorporated municipalities' 2-year previous surpluses or deficits. This is information that we get from our audits that are done on the previous year's financials. This information must be incorporated in the 2024 budget before providing it to the provincial government for approval. Normally, the audit should have been completed in March or April. Unfortunately, the auditing firms are either having personnel issues or we're waiting for answers to questions. To date, we only have 1 of 3 former municipal budget surpluses or deficit information to feed into the 2024 budget. So that means we cannot finalize it until we get that information. We also need to be mindful that we cannot be arbitrarily applying pressure on the auditors to finish that work. In addition, the auditor for the former village of Hillsborough, who had indicated that they were going to complete the audit for us, just informed us last week that they will not be able to complete the audit for 2022. Not completing the audit for 2022 is not an option. So we've reached out to another audit firm who is willing to take that over. So now we have to wait for that to be complete. Are there any questions in relation to what I said? And now for your information, Mr. Knickel and Mr. Steves, most of the conversation is at the council table. It doesn't involve the public. So Councillor Jonah, do you have any questions or comments to provide?
Not at this one.
Councillor Elwood?
No.
Councillor Arrow?
No, we have the budget meeting on Friday, but that's still sort of an early stage budget meeting.
Correct.
Do we have a sense, and I know you mentioned, Mayor, that we are waiting on 2022. It's not 2023, it's a 2022 audit.
Exactly.
When do we think we're going to be in a position to vote on the approval of our 2024 budget? Do we have any sense?
The quick answer to your question is no. I have asked our treasurer to reach out to the auditors to seek not to pressure them, but to ask them when they can reasonably get that information that we need to finalize our 2024 proposed budget. I've also suggested and asked our treasurer to reach out to the province to give them a heads up that we are not really anywhere close to approving our budget. Now, I have spoken to someone from outside the municipality that said the town of Riverview one time took until January to approve theirs. So my sense is that, and there are, as far as I know, there are a number of smaller municipalities who have yet to finalize their budgets. So to answer, the short answer to the question is, no, I don't have a date, but we will keep working towards that. We have to get our collective heads around the table and decide what's going to be included and not included in our.
Right, and so the significance for taxpayers and the community at large is that the tax rate for 2024 will not be known to you. So you can take, once you know the tax rate, you multiply that by your assessed value for your property, and you know how much your tax bill will be. Until we can give you the tax rate, you will not know what your 2024 property taxes will be, nor will you know what your utility, so the water and sewer charges for that. If you are a ratepayer, not everyone is connected to a system. And by the way, Mr. David back there, it's only the rate to people connected to the system pay for the water and sewer. There's no the other taxpayers don't pay anything. So until we do this, we will not know. So,
Correct.
yeah.
Councillor Coates. No questions, Councillor Ward Russell?
Maybe I'm supposed to know this, but I'm gonna ask the question, the surplus versus the deficit, did that get grouped together or is that individually?
That would go
It
individually,
is individually,
individually by former incorporated municipality.
plus LSDs,
Yes, we already have the LSD information. Yeah. we
but
all-
that stays with the LSD.
Correct, yeah, and gets factored into their tax rate. Yes. Okay. Next, oh, sorry, Council Lang, sorry.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Item 8C, the Hillsborough Water Exploration Phase 1. So we have received a request from Unglobe Engineering to confirm whether or not Fundy Albert wishes to proceed with the Phase 1 water exploration for the former village of Hillsborough. Revised costs, including engineering fees, amount to approximately $265,000, excluding exclusive of HST. The Hillsborough water utility rates were adjusted in 2023 to account for the additional revenues needed to pay for this Phase 1 and so on. Englobe Engineering is looking for a confirmation that we wish to proceed. My recommendation to council is that we do give them the authority to proceed. That work will not begin until 2024. So we've already have 1 year of additional revenue that we've collected, and that's going to be put in reserves for the Hillsborough utility only. And then that would fund the Phase 1 costs for next year. So we can, I'll just mention that at this meeting, and then in an upcoming meetings, we have a special meeting. I may introduce or may provide an opportunity to introduce a motion to approve their going ahead with that project. Item 8D, the policy on the use of municipal resources for the benefit of third parties. The draft policy on the use of municipal resources for the benefit of third parties has been circulated. I'd accept a motion to adopt the draft policy if someone is so inclined. Councilor Eric.
So I move that the village of Fundy Albert adopt the draft policy. So it would be no longer draft, titled the use of municipal resources for the benefit of a third party. For Fundy Albert, as was circulated to staff. Shall I read that policy?
No need, there's no need to,
No.
there's no need to read it.
Okay, so I move that.
So moved by Councilor Eric, seconded by Councilor Coates. Any discussion on or debate on the motion?
Yeah, so I would like to just add
Yes.
that this policy is being implemented for the purpose of avoiding the kind of situation that we have experienced earlier in the year in the municipality, where resources of the community, meaning staff and or our equipment, were used for the benefit of someone who's not directly the municipality. This practice has existed in all our communities for many, many years, actually. And it can take the example would be, there's an elderly person who needs help getting some garbage to maybe the Eco 360 mobile depot. And they would maybe call into the mayor or the chief administrative officer, the clerk, and ask for help. This has happened throughout our communities in the past, and normally these things were being dealt with. We know now, though, that the possibilities are that these things can go where complaints can be received and it's deemed to be inappropriate use. So a very brief policy has been prepared that still allows for this kind of practice, but with controls. And when it's used, who's got the authority is the chief administrative officer only. And they will report when they use this policy to the benefit of a third party in accordance with all sorts of conditions. They will report at the council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else have any comments that you'd like to add? If not, All in favor of the motion to adopt the policy as circulated, signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Motion's adopted unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Arrow. The next is the purchasing policy. So a draft financial management and procurement policy has been circulated for your review. I would accept a motion to adopt the draft policy if someone so inclined to present it. So, Councillor Ward Russell, go ahead, please.
I so move the Village of Fundy Albert Council adopt the draft policy titled Financial Management and Recruitment Policy for Fundy Albert as circulated effective with today's date, December 5th, 2023.
So moved by Councillor Ward Russell. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Elderkin. Any questions or debate on the motion?
On the part that has $3,000 to $10,000. For a quote is to take the least amount. Could that not be changed? That it could be up to the discretion of the CAO. Because if you take always the least amount of your tenant, you might not. We seem a little bit that some of the paving. My opinion, the paving wasn't the same standard as it was before in the village of it. Because we want the cheaper tenant. And at that, in between that small rate of 3 and 10,000, it says in there that they always take the lowest tenant. Can we reword that to say that it? No, sorry.
The trouble with that, Councillor, would be that you would have to have some sort of rating or a point system where you would have very well-defined criteria to award points for someone who would have a higher tender cost. You would have to have a rating scheme adopted for that. This is a very simplified version of that that says, as a basic premise, you award it to the cheapest tenant. But I don't know if that answers your question or not.
We can also change it later as we go.
Correct. That can always be amended. Period. So any other comments?
Only thing that I would ask is that the policy be circulated among staff to make sure that they are aware of the new policy and maybe even a quick signature or acknowledgement from them that they have acknowledged it.
You okay with that, Councilor? Yeah. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah.
If not,
No, I do.
Sorry, go ahead.
I believe when we do this kind of thing, a very brief explanation for the public is warranted. So this policy is modeled on a policy that another municipality, a neighboring municipality, was using. It's 8 pages. It's a policy that is meant to guide all of the purchases made by our municipality. It's intended to make sure that our procurement is transparent, is fair, and is who has the authority to purchase is extremely carefully prescribed. Department heads have a very low amount, but they do have the authority. Up to 30,000, the chief administrative officer, as long as it's a budgeted item, and beyond that, council is always involved. The council, the policy address tendering, the use of suppliers, vendors, and signing authorities. There's things, exceptions in terms of emergencies and so on. So I think it's a very important kind of overdue for us policy that will guide us moving forward immediately, really. Right.
So thank you very much. I think it warrants mentioning that our policies should be posted on our website so everyone can see them and read them. As soon as I figure out how to add a page to our website, it'll be on there. But I'm not a web designer. I'm the part of this thing from it, but I will try my best. All right. So on the motion to adopt the policy as circulated, signify by stating aye. Opposed, if any? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 8F, operating grant requests. So council has received 3 requests for grant funding. A council report form was circulated with the details of the requests. One includes a request from the Hillsborough Kiwanis for a contribution to a building renovation project that they are undertaking. The second is a request from the New Brunswick Division of the Canadian Railroad Historical Association for an operating grant of $2,000 for the 2023 calendar year. The third request is from the Riverside Albert Recreation Council seeking support of their annual Santa Visit program, where Santa visits a local nursing home and other areas in the community. The funding would be used to help provide cheer to needy residents. In the past, the former village of Riverside Albert has supported this initiative. So if council is so inclined, I would entertain a motion or motions if someone is prepared to present them.
I move that the Village of Fundy Albert provide an operational grant to the Riverside Albert Recreation Council in the amount of $200 for the 2023 operating year.
So moved by Councillor Elderton. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Land. Any questions on the motion for a $200 grant to the Riverside Albert Recreation Council? Not all in favor, signify by stating aye. Opposed, if any? Motion's carried.
I move that the Village of Fundy Albert provide an operational grant to the Hillsborough Kiwanis in the amount of $2,000 for the 2023 operating year.
So moved by Councillor Elderkin. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Jonah. Any questions on the motion?
I have a question. So,
Yes.
and then if we move towards the next one, I also have a similar concern. So it's been several months now since we've had a fiscal update for, council has had a fiscal update for 2023. And I personally am feeling adrift a little bit in having a very good feeling about and understanding about where we are fiscally for 2023. So the last for the amount for $200, I was quite prepared to and I did vote for that. I'm getting more nervous when the amounts are into the thousands. I realize that the quantity, it's what their project I believe in, and I know they actually sent in their request several months ago.
Correct.
But I don't think we know enough to know our fiscal position right now that this is a wise or prudent thing to do. So it's not a no, but within the absence of better information and knowing that we've had many unforeseen expenses in this community in this year, big unforeseen expenses. We could list them, but we maybe don't need to go there right now. And we haven't really seen where we are, so I'm against it.
Okay, maybe I'll try to answer some of your concerns. So I have spoken with our treasurer. So there's the motion, so we are in debate now. So I have spoken with our treasurer and I asked our treasurer for an indication of where we're headed towards the projection for 2023. The treasurer, at the time, the treasurer informed me that we were likely to be somewhere around the $90,000 surplus range for 2023. That said, that does not include a number of initiatives that are ongoing right now, including the CAO selection process, which, as we know, and was detailed in the motion that was approved by council. The cost associated with that would be 15% of the CAO salary. So potentially many thousands of dollars. There's also, if there are other motions that are passed, it starts chipping away at some of that surplus. So anything that's approved, yes, you're correct, Councillor Errol, you would end up chipping away at that. So having said that, it's a decision of council whether or not to approve the motion as it's been presented. So, and you're well within your right to say I will not be supporting.
Well, it's because of the absence of
Right.
information. So under the banner of informed decision making, I don't feel you want.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments to provide?
I believe we were talking at one point of providing or preparing a policy as well for receiving grants. So I think honestly, we should probably hold off on approving any more until that policy is done.
Okay. Any other comments?
The only comment I have is that the Hillsborough Kiwanis, as John has mentioned, has asked beforehand, and they have given the details on a very specific reason that they're looking for it. That to me makes somewhat of a difference.
Okay, anyone else have any comments? No, so now it's time to vote. The motion's been moved, been seconded to provide a $2,000 operating grant. And it would be from our 2023 budget. It doesn't mean it's for 2023 for their purposes. They're trying to advance a project. So, all in favor of the motion to provide a $2,000 operating grant to the Hillsborough Kiwanis, signify by stating aye. And opposed, if any? There's 4 in favor of, 2 opposed, and I will cast my vote in favor of. So the motion is passed. There anything else to be advanced this evening? There were 2 that we've looked at. There were 3 requests. Okay, so we will move on. Item 8G is a request for public statement. Council has received a request from an area resident that would encourage our local government to take a public stand and send a letter to the federal government in relation to the war in Gaza. The request was forwarded to council for consideration. I'm bringing it because it's been provided to council. I'm obligated to bring it forward for consideration. Yes, council. Well, before you start into a debate, if there's no motion, it's not discussed. And we can't discuss it without a motion. So we move on. All right, thank you very much. Item 8I. PAW proposal, PAW being the former SPCA. A proposal's been received from PAW for the provision of animal control and enforcement work. PAW, formerly known as the SPCA, has provided animal control bylaw enforcement. And I stand to be corrected, Councillor Elderton, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it was for the 3 former incorporated municipalities.
I have it here, and that's how I will
Okay,
interpret
I
it.
just wanted to make sure because I knew Hillsborough did, I knew the former village of Alma had animal control bylaw.
No. Sorry.
They have a bylaw. The fact that maybe they didn't enforce it
Exactly.
is a problem. Okay, so the proposal includes dog control, and it's only for dog control in the 3 former incorporated municipalities at a cost of $13,684.34 for the 2024 calendar year. This will be brought forward to the budget meeting on Friday for consideration. So I just wanted to bring it forward as something that we will have to discuss. If there is to be dog control bylaw, then we have an obligation to somehow provide that service. And their service right now is at a cost of $13,684.34 for the 12-month period for the 3 former incorporated municipalities. The proposal that was forwarded provides the details of what that would include. It would include a monthly patrol, responding to calls, responding to complaints, and preparation of any information that's needed to look after people who are not following our bylaws. As it relates to dogs,
Yes, monthly patrol in Hillsborough only, quarterly, if I read that correctly.
I believe the Hillsborough only part was only for 2023. I believe. I could be wrong, Castle.
No, it includes a monthly patrol of Hillsborough, quarterly patrols of Riverside, if no other complaints are received.
Okay.
Time period.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be exactly equitable. No. Anyway, so this will be brought, I just wanted to bring it up as an information item. It will be brought up at our budget meeting for consideration.
Recreation council, please. Just sit down. You want to pause?
Oh, just a minute. Sorry, our clerk has informed me that I skipped one. Item 8H is the Hillsborough Recreation Council. A council report form is circulated that contains information about the genesis of the Hillsborough Recreation Council, what it has been used for historically, any governance, and the possible options moving forward. This one will entertain some discussion because I know Councillor Errol, you had some questions about that. Are there any questions or preferences the council wishes to pursue in relation to the former Hillsborough Rec Council?
I do.
Yep.
Yeah, so. The background without going into all the details, is there is this entity known as the Hillsborough Recreation Council, which is a not-for-profit organization that actually, and you correct me if I'm wrong on anything I say here,
Sure.
that in fact is an element or entity of the former village of Hillsborough and now the village of Fundy Albert. There is no other organization that really exists. It is only the municipality has this thing, a nonprofit that sort of sits off on the edge, that is actually completely controlled by the municipality.
I would agree with your assertion that it's controlled by the municipality. It is a separate entity per se, but it has always been managed and controlled by the former community of the village of Hillsborough. Correct.
So what bothers me about this organization is that it has been and it is being used for purposes for which we're transparent to this council. We know that. So for instance, there was a grant application made, and in fact, it was successful by the Hillsborough Rec Council that was made by you, Mayor, on behalf of this organization and the municipality that we didn't know anything about, right? And that's not good. So one of the things that you propose, which I do think is a good thing, I think that this entity should be not associated with the municipality at all. You mentioned in the statement here that the advantage of having this entity is it was able to do things that the municipality wasn't able to do, which bothers me immensely because it's like we're masquerading the municipality as this other entity that is allowed to apply for a grant that a municipality is not allowed to.
Correct.
And this, I think, is wrong. It's just absolutely wrong. But we know that rec councils are useful. They've been useful in Hillsborough. In fact, Riverside Albert has a rec council. In fact, even Alma has a rec council. The Alma one is completely and utterly distinct from the municipal government, always was. It has its own board of directors. The Riverside Albert one, to my knowledge, is absolutely distinct from the former municipal government. It is run by members of the community for the benefit of the community. It's a nonprofit. It seeks grants and such, and this is all great. And sometimes it seeks money from the municipality. This is good stuff. I think that should be the model for the Hillsborough Rec Council. So if Now the Hillsborough Rec Council currently has an HST number in the name of essentially, at some point, it's the municipality. That needs to be settled, in my view. And so this Hillsborough Rec Council, if there were members of the community that wanted to take this over for the good works that it might want to do as a non-profit organization, I'm fully supportive, but they should not be and will, I think we need to decide tonight that we will no longer allow the Hillsborough Rec Council to conduct any business as if or as part of it's the municipal government.
The other thing I would point out is there are implications for that, of course.
Maybe explain.
Is that historically, the Hillsborough Rec Council has been. The Hillsborough Rec Council and funds have been used to apply for federal grants and provincial grants for student employment for the pool lifeguard at 100%. That will no longer be possible. No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying there are implications. It would have to be managed by and applied for by this separate board. I agree with the concept of having a governance structure that's managing it and having financial statements. Of course, if we hand it off to a private interest, then we would no longer be responsible, or not only, we would not really be in any position to hold them accountable for anything related to that. So, and I get your point. I'm not disagreeing necessarily with your point. I'm just saying there are implications to doing that. As an example, I believe there has been, or there is in the process of applying for fireworks funding.
Yeah.
That would not be possible on behalf of the municipality.
Yeah, but it seems like wrong that you have a program that it says you can only apply if you are a municipality, or you can only apply if you're a nonprofit. And we're playing both ends.
Well, I'll disagree with you there, because the rules are that if you're a nonprofit, you can get funding at 100%. If you're applying as a municipality, it's 50%. That's the distinction.
Right, and so
I'm not,
we're abusing, they make that distinction, that meaning the granting entity makes the distinction. They say, if it's a municipality, you know, these are your rules, and if it's not, these are your rules, and we're playing at both ends, playing it both ways.
May I interject?
well, just a minute. Is that it? Okay, thanks, Councilor.
If we dissolve the Rec Council, John,
That's not what Councilor Arrow is suggesting.
I know, but he wants to take it from the municipality, put it outside.
Right.
You're gonna lose 100% funding for your swimming pool. Who's gonna pick up the tab? You also have fireworks. There's only two.
That's incorrect. Because the Rec Council, as a nonprofit, can apply for the 100% funds. It's not because it's the municipality.
No, that's what I mean. That's what I meant.
Okay.
But they can apply for that, and they have received that in the past.
True.
Yes,
Yes,
so that's saving the taxpayers some money.
true.
Okay, it's also with fireworks. We have one now, we have one else, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. This helps support that. If you go to an outside board, the chances of them putting in an application for fireworks for Hillsborough,
That would be other ways.
etc. So then we have to take that money from the budget somewhere, right? And the budget is tight enough with it. It's not an illegal thing. It's been happening for years. So it's not illegal. The accountants put it through the auditors. It's all legal. So why go in and try to change something that we're getting maybe a little bit of gravy outside?
The auditors disagree with your use of the terminology. Great. The auditors are fully aware for it, and they account for it in the annual audit. So they're aware of the existence of the Hillsborough. I would agree that it is not being managed in accordance with how a not-for-profit should be managed.
Especially when it's conducting activities that the only The organization is the municipality, the municipal government, and it was conducting operations that we as council didn't even know about. Right?
Or our administrator did.
But council did it.
No, I'm just saying. Our local government, we knew it existed, we just never informed this council per se. All right, Councilor Elderton.
I think for me, I would like to see what we've utilized them for this year.
It's in the council report.
Okay, thanks. I didn't pick up on all that, sorry. So some of
Not
them.
in detail.
Yeah, like,
It
that's
was,
what I mean.
it
I
was-
didn't see the detail of what benefit it gave to Fundy Albert this year. Like, did some of our summer students, was that how we got them, was through this?
No, we didn't apply for it through the program. In the year prior to that, we did.
Okay,
And it was paid for 100%. For the lifeguard only, not
Right.
for the remainder of our summers.
right,
Yeah, it was through the Canada's Fund.
so that's where my,
And in the past, it has been used to put on winter carnivals and various other activities, ball tournaments, buying ball equipment for young people and so on. But that goes back many, many years. And at one point, and we'll mention it, it was incorporated at one point. Yeah. And that was made clear to me that it was incorporated in 1984 and it was dissolved in 2005. And I think we all need to acknowledge that at one point, there was involvement by a counselor and the administrator in the previous administration of that rec council fund, and that has been allowed to sit. And that shouldn't have happened. Councillor Jones, any comments? Okay, Councillor Coates?
No, okay.
Okay,
Doesn't the rec council enable us to apply for additional students in the summer? Because right now the municipality is limited to. Or
It would
it was a.
it would be like someone was applying.
Right, so I think that's how, if I'm not mistaken, I understood that additional students could be achieved or could be hired. Would be through this, because I think now the municipality, if I'm not mistaken, Albert, we were allowed to have 2, I think it was 6, and now we're limited to 3, I think, so 3 or 4, so. By keeping this, we're applying through the summer staff, it would enable us to increase that overall number.
Okay. So. If you want to hand it off to another organization, we would need a motion to that.
Not to name that.
Not tonight, no, we've already had the conversation. So that would have to be raised at a different time. We've already had the conversation about this. So a motion to be entertained after the conversation has occurred is not appropriate.
Is it appropriate though to say that until such time as we get to decide what to do with this, that it not be used for any purpose?
I think that would be a fair.
I think we should agree as whoever is. So our chief administrative officer and yourself, Mayor, and anybody else who's been using this, that we agree around the table tonight not to use it until such time as we get to the bottom of this. Once and for all.
We can have a special meeting and have a definite decision made at that time. Okay, my commitment will be to bring it to council before anything else happens.
Okay, good.
All right.
And any other uses you made of this.
Sure. All right. So, item, we touched on item I, which is the PAW proposal. Item 8J, Alma Outpost Rental Agreement for 2024. Our Director of Community Services has advised that the agreement for the space being rented by the Alma Outpost expires on December 31st, 2023. The space is being rented by Friends of Fundy Group. The director would like to know if council wishes to sign a new agreement for 2024 with Friends of Fundy and whether the rate should remain the same or be changed. The current agreement for rental is in the amount of $1,500 per month, or a total of $18,000 per year. If you're so inclined, there is a draft motion available for your use. That's if you wish the rate to remain the same. If there's no motion, the rent terminates December 31st.
That's all, I'll make that motion then. Whereas the Friends of Fundy have been renting space in the Alma Cultural Building consisting of the rental and storage space. This is downstairs we're referring to, where the store is. And whereas the current rental agreement expires on December 31st, 2023. Be it resolved that the Village of Fundy, Albert Council authorize the continued rental of the space by Friends of Fundy at the rate of $1,500 per month. Perhaps we can have a debate for the 2024 calendar year if the Friends of Fundy wishes to continue the agreement.
So moved by Councillor Arrow. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor. Go ahead if you wish to have.
Yeah, so previously on some other revenue streams that we did not raise a rate for 2024. I know Councillor Elderkin and I voted against that at one point because everything is going up, including everything. I personally think that it would be not unreasonable to ask for 1,500 plus the consumer price index for 2023 as an additional amount, but.
Okay, any other comments?
What is the rate again for the consumer?
CPI,
No,
so 4%.
Yeah, ish.
So it'll be an additional $60 per month.
1,560.
Yeah.
So, for me to better understand this, is this $1,500 per college store downstairs, John?
Yeah.
Store and some space in behind the store.
Yeah,
If I
that's
So
right.
everybody downstairs is paying $1,500.
Well, there's only one facility.
Okay.
Okay, and it should be, you should be aware, and the community should be aware, and I think I'm right in saying this, that, rental income from any of our municipal properties is a shared revenue stream.
Because the cost is shared.
Yeah, correct. So in other words, this revenue, where it used to be actually, it was Alma. But as of amalgamation, any of our revenue streams, we don't have very many of them really in the community. This is one of our few revenue streams that we do have. It actually does go into the shared pot.
Reason I asked, I was a little shocked that it's 1,500. I thought that was here or not, personally. But that's how it's been, that's how it's been.
That's-
I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, but I just thought that was surprised.
Okay.
That's all.
You know what it costs to keep the building maintained and hydro for you?
I don't.
That would take cost accounting to look at all the expenses and then figure out the.
Side of the store.
Well, I think that would, not only the zones of the answer.
Yeah, we establish a square footage rate. And I don't know that that's ever been done in the past and how they.
I'm sure.
Okay. So right now, we do have a motion. Anyone else wish to provide comments?
I agree with the increase.
Okay, Councillor Jonah? Any other comments? Okay, Councillor Coates? Councillor Russell?
Any communication been had with Friends of Fundy today?
No,
No,
no. And we would communicate with them and just say, this is the rate for.
so you don't, it's like it's December the 5th, so you're saying January's bill is going up $60?
That's right. Based on this motion. Okay,
I agree
Well,
with you.
and what I would see is, it says if Friends of Fundy wishes to continue the agreement, I would always expect if they want to negotiate, that we would be open to negotiating, right? Would we not? Isn't that how we would normally
we
operate?
would inform them based on this motion that the rate.
Yeah, here's the rate. And if they want to negotiate, if they,
It would have to come back to
yeah,
council.
that's right,
If it wasn't
Yeah.
agreeable to them,
yeah,
it would have to come back.
it seems fair to me.
If I could just point out that the motion that was read was for 1,500,
It needs to be amended.
right?
I need
And
an
if that's
amendment.
okay and that's.
If it's
okay.
a friendly amendment to 1,560, agreed with the seconder, then it
Yeah.
can be amended, a friendly amendment to $1,560 for a total of, had it here, 18,720 per year. Everyone ready for the question? On the question, all in favor, signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any. The motion's carried. Thank you. Item number 8K. Alma knotweed eradication and control. Guardian Ecology, a company based out of Alma, has provided knotweed control and eradication services for the past several years. They've provided a report outlining activities, challenges, and successes. They're proposing two possible options for the community in 2024. One, which is to continue with services that they've provided in the past, and a second option, which would see enhanced efforts. One option would be similar to the services they have provided in the past, would consist of a contribution by the municipality of $4,000, which is what we were currently paying. The option that provides enhanced services, really, we're talking about the number of summer students that it would employ during the summer, would require a contribution from the municipality of $6,330. That's not what it actually costs to run that program. It's considerably more than. It's just the municipality's contribution would be the $6,330 versus the $4,000. A timely response is required as the deadline for applications for grant funding is rapidly approaching. I will point out that I only received this a week or two ago. So a decision to proceed with either option would require a resolution of council. If we don't proceed, if there's no resolution of council, then there's no agreement, and we have to inform Guardian Ecology of that.
Are we allowed to speak or not?
Not until, unless there's a motion.
Something weird here, but anyways.
No,
No. But then
you can defeat the motion.
yeah, if it's
You
moved
don't
and
have to.
seconded, even if you move it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you have to vote in favor of it. It's just that it's on the table for discussion.
Okay. It has to be on the table for discussion.
I'll read that motion.
Go ahead.
Whereas Asian knotweed and invasive plant species is a serious concern in the community of Alma, and whereas the Guardian Ecology has promoted to convert a knotweed control eradication program in the community of Alma, has submitted a proposal to continue these efforts. Be resolved, the Village of Funny Elder approved money in the amount of $6,330 for knotweed control interaction in the community of Alma in the 24th calendar year.
So moved by Councillor Ward Russell. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Elderkin. Now there can be discussion. Councillor Ward Russell, since you moved, you have the option of speaking first.
I wasn't aware of this project, so I guess I have to be open to that. I wasn't aware that it was something that we were supporting in the past. I guess my only question is it the current budget that we've seen, is this number associated in our budget, or is this would be added into it?
It would, it's probably included in our draft budget at $4,000. Yeah. But there's a significant, the difference is 4,000 versus 6,330. The difference is enhanced knotweed eradication and control versus the current, which is having some success. But the concern is that there's probably more work.
Well, I believe also that, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is a serious issue in the Alma area.
Very serious.
Right, so, yeah.
Correct. Councillor Elderton, anything to add? Anything comments?
No, I would just have to defer to Councilor Arrow to see if he would think that the enhanced is beneficial to the former village.
Right. Okay, Councillor Arrow, sorry, go ahead.
No, well, I think we have to defer this because this is part of the 2024 budget deliberation. I find it odd that we'd even entertain agreeing to an amount when we haven't seen the whole budget to know. So I'm not opposed to this, right? But we cannot, I know that Mr. McCallum, who is our knotweed genius, has himself deadlines for things like the environmental trust fund funding and such, but I don't think that we can entertain this now, right? We can entertain it on Friday and beyond as we're doing the budget deliberations. So on that point, I would vote against this now, but not necessarily in the future. However, what I would like to say, and I think this would be helpful for our community as they provide feedback to us and me of whether the enhanced or the basic amount or any amount is worth it, is there's a 17-page wonderful study that Keith McCallum has produced on behalf of Guardian Ecology that outlines all of the whole history of the project here in Alma. And I would recommend that we provide this onto our website or through social media, so the community can see what he's produced. And then we get to this as part of our budget deliberations.
Okay, I'll try my best to post it. Recognizing that I'm actually pretty good at posting one page, but the report is like several.
Don't we have, isn't our administration have the capacity to be doing this?
No,
No.
no. Right now, I took it over and you're limited to one. Now, you can try. My commitment is I'll try my best. All right. If you're familiar with WordPress. All right.
Can I ask a question here?
Sure.
So, to answer your question, would you be open to the 4,000 that was already in the current budget, which is already in the budget deliberations?
In principle, yes, but the draft, early draft of the budget I saw for 2024 was way too much money without going into details. And I believe that we likely are going to have some very tough choices to make as a council. And this is a nice to have, but not a need to have.
So
I believe.
The not eradication is.
Yes, yes. But not a need to have, but I think it's important when you see the successes that the project has had in the village and the concerns of doing nothing. I get it, but we have bigger issues to address.
We'll have a conversation around it at our budget meeting.
Yeah.
But I will caution that we need an answer fairly quickly, otherwise there is no application could go into the environmental trust fund. And they may realize at the end of the day, even if we want to pursue, and I'm not,
I know, but you know,
hanging this over people's heads. I'm just saying, these are some of the implications that we are starting to defer a number of items.
what I would respond there though, is that this is exactly the reason why next year we cannot be debating and screwing around with the budget in December, when the deadline is November 15, and there's reasons for that. You can see there's a reason why the Environmental Trust Fund deadline is after the budget deadline for municipalities, so this doesn't happen.
Right. Yeah, agree with you. Very valid. So.
How many years have we been supporting this?
It's,
Or
I think
that's
it's
acceptable?
3 or
At least
4 years.
Well, maybe somebody 3
years? Okay. For 3 years. So there is a motion on the floor for it to not move ahead, it needs to be defeated. So on the question of approval of $6,330 for knotweed eradication and control for the community of Alma, all in favor signify by stating aye, and we will count the votes. Councillor Coates. No. The nay. Councillor Ward Russell. Yay. Councillor Lang. Nay. Councillor.
Just for clarification, if we defeat it,
It's still coming down.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It has to be a new motion.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Councillor Elder. Councillor Jonah. Okay, so it's defeated. And no motion this evening. Thank you very much. Next item is AL, office consolidation proposal. Our treasurer submitted a council report form outlining a request to consolidate administrative services into one location. The treasurer is recommending the relocation of all administrative personnel to a former residential property at 61 Academy Street in Hillsborough. At this time, council should provide their questions and comments to the treasurer for clarification. So, because we're not advancing a motion, the treasurer is not requesting a motion, please provide your questions to, but if you wish to make a statement this evening, by all means.
We had a potential interest in the, did that fall through with,
No, we're talking the residential unit at 61 Academy. There's also the office space, which is the Horizon Health would be interested in.
so the upstairs part is what you're saying?
No, there's a residential, two-story residence, office. Right. It's whether or not the residence would be fit for purpose, and the treasurer, from a conversation that I had with her, this would be an interim measure until such time as council were to decide to build a new facility somewhere.
Well, I'd be in favor of it to get our,
Yeah, well, we're not voting on it tonight, but if you have any questions or comments, please provide them to the treasurer.
the estimate that to make it up to bring it up to snuff to do it, is that a pretty good estimate, you know?
In my view?
No.
No. Okay. Council Ward Russell?
Is it a normal,
Oh, sorry. By all means.
is it a normal, plan that the treasurer is the one that provides this information to us?
It shouldn't be, but in absence of a chief administrative officer, then I think there's a reason for the suggestion. And it's to bring everyone under one roof to make things more functional. And I don't disagree with that. But anyway. Anything else?
I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Council Lamb?
How far can I go on this?
Stay narrow.
I disagree with it.
Okay,
I think we have property elsewhere, we can, facilitate and make a much richer environment for council, with council chambers and office space all in one building. And we could put another organization in that 61 Academy Street. So,
all right. So provide your comments to the treasurer. Councilor Arrow? No, Councilor Elderton?
No, I appreciate the fact that they're trying to get under one roof. But I also appreciate the fact we need to have a short-term plan and a long-term plan. And I think to have a quick-term fix may not solve all of our issues that we currently have.
I would tend to agree. Councilor Jonah?
I do think, the 61 Academy, that residential side should be used and utilized. I'm not sure that it should be council. We'll have conversations.
Sure. All right. So provide your comments to the treasurer. Item 8M, Public Works Vehicle Acquisition. So a council report form has been circulated outlining a request to dispose of a 2017 Dodge Ram 3500 vehicle that was previously owned by the former Village of Allen. The Director of Operations and the Treasurer both recommend trading that vehicle in on a 3/4 ton four-wheel drive crew cab truck capable of being equipped with a plow, which would be a much better use of a vehicle for the community. Several quotations were obtained from area dealerships and are outlined in the council report form. The information contained in the form includes how the vehicle would be paid for. If we are to entertain the purchase of a vehicle, we would need a motion to proceed.
make that motion, that we proceed with the number.
Just follow the motion.
Want me to read that one?
Yeah.
Whereas the Village of Prince Albert Public Works fleet is in need of right sizing, and whereas the current 2017 Dodge Ram 3500 is needed for replacement. Be it resolved, the village of Honey Elder approve the purchase of the 2024 Dodge Ram 2500 4x4 crew cab from Moncton Chrysler Dodge Jeep at a cost of $71,850, less a trade-in value of $38,000 for the purchase price, including your taxes of a total of $40,389.90.
So moved by Councillor George Russell, seconded by Councillor Lamb. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Ward Russell, you made the motion. You have, do you have any, you don't have to, do you have any comments? Okay, Councillor Lamb, do you have any comments?
I think we should move forward with this. I thought it was speed truck. That currently we have one, that's an operation, the plow truck. We have a big area covered. This truck is available for purchase. Of the 6 quotes that were provided, with only 2 vehicles in the city, mountain that are available to purchase. The rest have to be ordered. That's why I'm supporting this, to bring it on, it's new. They can put a plow, if we have a plow that will fit on, then it can be serviced there immediately. If it snows, then it can be put through a.
Okay, anybody else have any comments or questions in relation to the motion? I do. Go ahead, Council ladies, Alderman first.
So one of my comments is, in the presentation, it was, the way it was presented to be cost shared. In the 3 former municipalities, the cost included a previous truck that we already purchased. The Canyon, I think it was including the cost of the Canyon that we purchased back.
Correct, the overall cost, yes.
Correct, so when I went back on the minutes, it didn't state that we were going to cost share the Canyon. So I went back and listened to the video, and I'm not sure that it was agreed that we would cost share. In fact, I think it was stated that it was replacing a vehicle from Hillsborough that should have been replaced prior to amalgamation, and that it would come out of the reserves. That it was very clear this wasn't setting the precedence going forward. So I'm not sure if the cost that was split, that's what I took from going back on the video and reading the minutes.
And this is the presentation by the treasurer. It's not, doesn't necessarily mean, it means that the cost, there's 2 issues. One is the purchase of a truck.
Right.
And the trade-in of the Dodge Ram 3500 on that truck, that's one issue. The other issue, and I recognize that as a legitimate issue, is how do we pay for it?
Right.
What, you know, and there are several ways of looking at it. My personal view is that you don't necessarily need to deal with the second issue before dealing with the most important issue, which is the purchase of a vehicle and the trade-in of the Dodge Ram 3500 on that purchase. Now, there can be a conversation afterwards on how we pay for that, in terms of who contributes what from what municipality. And as you point out, whether that purchase of a Canyon vehicle, which was done in February, whether that should be included in the overall mix of what municipalities contribute to the payout.
Right, so what I'm suggesting is, and I think it was mentioned in the meeting, like, let's have the discussion, so we're not talking about this 6 months later, and we are now talking about it
6 months later.
more than 6 months later now. So I think for me, it's part of the discussion. Because going in, I want to know where the money's coming from. So to me, it's kind of part and parcel, and I think that's maybe where we went wrong in February, was that we said we had agreed to purchase the truck, but it never said who was paying for it.
Okay.
You know, if that was the case, that it was going to be down the road, we would cost share it, that should have been. And it should have been recognized in the video. That I'm not seeing that, so my suggestion is I'd like to see that up front now. I'm not disagreeing they need a truck. My one question I have is, we had 2 garbage trucks, so this will give us 1 garbage truck.
Yes,
What's our backup?
nothing.
So that,
The trailer. We do have a trailer if they have to use.
With the 3-ton.
With what?
With the 3-ton, which it in itself needs to be replaced. Like, what I will caution everybody is if we don't if we don't make a decision on this particular purchase, the purchase is that Public Works will continue to operate without a vehicle. And that vehicle that is being recommended may not even be on the lot tomorrow. It may already have been purchased.
I'm not disagreeing,
Okay,
but my question, I guess, is, does Fundy Albert have the money from the 3 former municipalities to pay for this truck? At what point do they all just become Fundy Albert's vehicles and not 3 formers? When do we stop this?
right. And the proposal by the proposal, less you're concerned about the canyon, is that's what the treasurer is recommending, is that it be cost shared by everyone. So I accept, and I actually, for what it's worth, I actually agree with you that the canyon should never have been cost shared. Because if you replaced a piece of junk in February, that vehicle was,
We got a piece of junk that we're gonna try to turn in front of the motors half road. You can debate.
Counselor, we can debate it. The question before council is, do we buy the truck or not? If the decision is defeated, then we don't buy the truck. Okay. What we will need to do, and it can be done separately, through a separate motion. Through a separate motion, I'm saying split the 2 issues up. Deal with the truck issue first, then deal with how you pay for the truck or trucks afterwards. Our treasurer is telling us that the monies are available in reserves from Hillsborough, is available from reserves in Riverside Albert. And she is saying that the Alma's contribution would be through a loan from reserves to be paid back over 3 years. And that can be done through the budget.
But we're not agreeing to that, right? Because that, we're.
No, yeah, because there's both vehicles involved. So the issue is, do we proceed with the purchase of the new truck?
But if I added a sentence at the end of that motion that just stated that a complete breakdown of where these expenses or where these monies will be coming from will be.
Are you prepared? Please make an amendment
Okay,
to the motion.
would that work? And that would take care of, and I would want that information within, a week of today's meeting. And I think that should be achievable.
We've got a lot of stuff going on.
If they want to try,
No, but what you're saying is, you're asking this council to make that decision within a week.
No, I'm asking for the information to be sent to us from the treasurer
Right.
within a week.
What the difference in cost would be?
Not of the breakdown of what each municipality. will
I'm
pay.
okay with the purchasing of the truck. I just want it to be very clear where the money's coming from. We didn't, I'm just picking up what I went back and watched on the video, so I
But
guess,
don't you think that information should be provided to you before you make approve that motion?
well, there was information provided
So you have an
based on 2 new vehicles.
Sorry, guys. This is not a two-way conversation. One person at a time.
Okay.
Counselor Calvert, you done? Okay,
Is there a friendly amendment? No?
no?
Okay.
So we have a motion on the floor.
Well, I was.
Go ahead, Councilor.
So. I echo actually a lot of what Councillor Elderkin has said. In principle, basically, we're down vehicles. We need vehicles, there's a vehicle available. So I get that, and I think we need to get ready to act. However, there is the question about the vehicle that's being disposed of as part of the deal, because you see there's a significant trade-in associated with it. A very generous trade-in, you could say. But the vehicle that's being traded in is the vehicle that is used or it was originally purchased to pick up garbage in this community. Now was partly for this, well, there's two vehicles that are almost identical, right? Riverside Albert has also a garbage truck hauler for money. In the past, there have been numerous instances where the Alma truck would break down, or there would be a people issue associated with the driver. And the Riverside Albert truck and crew would save the day call. And this happened reciprocally. The Riverside Albert truck would periodically go down. And Alma's truck would save the day. We have a history of that. So when Councillor Elderkin asked the question, so what happens when the sole remaining garbage truck, if we dispose of this one, what happens when it goes down? And your answer was, there is no backup. Well, this is unacceptable, right? There has to be a backup. Or else we need to we already know how expensive it is on short notice to get garbage picked up by a third party, because we just lived that in the month of November. So is there a backup? So just explain to us what the backup is.
The backup would be exactly what we did this past month. And you could pull a trailer with the 3-ton, but the 3-ton itself needs desperately to be replaced. And according to the asset management plan that the treasurer and the director of operations have created, it's due for replacement next year. So we would be looking at replacing 2 vehicles next year.
And why can't you?
No, just, were you done?
No.
Okay.
So I guess there's a bit of risk management there, and we cross our fingers. If we buy the truck and dispose of the one associated with the trade, we cross our fingers and hope that the remaining garbage truck doesn't go down.
Or we decide to keep the existing truck and put new tires on it and.
Well, in a way, that's not a bad option, except for it seems like a generous trade that's being offered here.
Compared to the others, yes.
Yeah, yeah. For instance, we have one group is quoting a trade-in of 13,000 and another is trading of 38,000. It's bizarre.
23
for the same truck. I don't know.
Can I answer that one?
Hmm?
Can I answer?
Yeah, please.
If you're buying a 3/4-ton truck, why can't I haul a trailer? Three
Can I?
thirds, then now it's deep.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you're using for their truck to haul the trailer.
All the trailer. Cause your truck is, you wanna be in for trade. The front end needs replaced, a lot of the front end, new tires, in a sense. And shit.
Yeah, no, I get that part. So
So it's gonna cost money for keep.
because I know we're running out of time, so I agree.
Go back and forth, please.
Yeah, so I would agree with the purchase of the truck and the disposal of the other one. The additional element of this item about how it's to be paid. I am very much in line with Councillor Elderkin here, that the proposal that has been put before us that actually is now including the 2 previous trucks fails to, and the way it would be paid is essentially the Alma subunit would be loaning money, receiving a loan from Hillsborough.
In essence,
That's essentially what it is. Without any recognition of the fact that the truck that's being disposed of was bought and paid for by Alma.
correct.
Yeah, entirely. So this is an issue for me here. And we can talk about that either now, or we can defer to where the money's coming from later.
Okay.
So I'm okay to buy the truck and use the reserves that are available out there in the community, as we did with the last truck. And have the debate about where and how the actual money to buy the 43,890, where it comes from, I'm okay with that.
All right, Council Land.
if we're going forward with these vehicles, we have to get on, we are one in. Hillsboro's got assets, Albert's got assets, and Alma's. got- If we start this saying that this is Alma's truck and it needs to go back into the office. Hillsboro's gonna do the same one, 550 solo, the mini, we get all kinds of attachments up there. We've got to act as one. This saying that Albert's trucks, Alma's trucks, we gotta get away from them.
Right,
So this is the perfect time to get
it
away from
is, it is.
take the money, put it towards a new vehicle. And for that $40,389.90, do your percentages that the village is paying and break it down in paper.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments? I'm putting an end to
Yeah,
that.
I'm gonna,
Story.
I'm gonna agree with you on councilman here. I'm sitting here thinking, first trucks, garbage, whatever. December 31st, 22, we were separate. January 1st, 23, we are Fundy Albert. From one end to the other with Fundy Albert. Too many times I've said at this table here, well, this is ours, that's ours, that's gotta stop. There's divisions here, and this is probably why some of the divisions are here. We are very, very fortunate where we live. We are very fortunate to be amalgamated as Fundy Albert, and we've got to start acting as one entity, not three in LSCs.
Okay, thank you. That is the premise for everyone, the treasurer's recommendation that everyone contributes to the can. It was purchased in February. It was after December 31st. That's the premise. It can be debated. I would recommend it be debated later. We have had a conversation around this table about the purchase of the truck. So on the motion that was advanced to purchase the truck, I will ask the question. All in favor of the motion to purchase the truck, signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? The motion's passed. We'll let staff know tomorrow. Thank you very much. Item number 9, which is bylaws. There are no bylaws to present this evening. Mayor and councillor statements. So we start with Councillor Donut.
All I have to say is, we had a lot going on in Fundy Albert this past weekend. Markets and various, their parades, breakfasts. None of this would have been done without volunteers. Volunteers are the backbones of our community, and I just want to show that anybody that's ever volunteered, thank you very much. You have my utmost respect. And none of this stuff this past weekend and stuff moving forward would not have happened for volunteers. And I want to thank them, some of them are here. Thank you. Truly, I volunteers mean so much to me. And this past weekend, they stood up one end to the other, and I just want to thank each one. That's
Great,
all.
thank you very much, Councillor Overton.
Yeah, I'll be quick tonight. The Riverside Albert Fire Department to be certified for entering fires required new air packs or CSCBAs for entering structural fires. They have ordered 2 out of this year's budget and has budgeted for 2 more to be ordered for next year's. As we work through this year's budget, we are preparing to obtain a new fire truck, in which can't be tendered until our 2024 budget has been approved. In addition, there are community members that would like to get back to the community by kicking off a small fundraising campaign in the year to help offset some of the cost of this of the fire truck in our municipality. I attended the Riverside Albert and Alma Remembrance Day services. Thank you to the volunteers supporting the Girl Guides for assisting with the luncheon. Congratulations to the CCRC community group for planning another successful Christmas in the Country event this year, having over 500 customers drop by the rec center on Saturday alone. In addition, thank you to the volunteers throughout Fundy Albert that offered breakfasts, craft shows, and of course, the Snyder family for organizing the Santa Claus parade to end the day. It was lovely. There is a need to purchase a proper cleaning stone for the grill in Riverside Albert. I guess it's the COA that I send this request to. We don't have the proper stone on the grill, our grill is going to start to rust. And because it's not being cleaned properly. So for the people renting, it's good to have the right things there so it gets used because it's a brand new stone. Although the landscaping is not complete, the Riverside Albert Playground is ready for some action. Congratulations again to the small group of volunteers that took on this project. It will be used by many children for years to come. Very pleased to say that the interview process has begun for the hiring of a new CAO. That process has begun this week, and we'll be moving forward with that.
Great. Thank you very much, Councilor Overton. Councilor Arrow.
Just a few things here. One is, in my role as the liaison from council for Fundy National Park, or with Fundy National Park. They periodically send me, information updates, and they recently did. If we can actually be able to post this on our stuff, that would be good as well, the one that we recently received. Thank you. I have forwarded that to all of them, so you probably got that. There were just a few stats there I thought would be very interesting for the Fundy Albert and the community. That from May to October of this past year, Fundy Park is declaring that they had an impressive turnout of visitors with their, by their calculation, 271,000 visitors, which is above average amount since 2016. And in fact, they had 46,600 site nights of campers in the park this year. So there's clearly lots of activity going on in the park. They're open all through the winter season, with a winter offer that you could go to their website and read about that. There's a number of developments that they have underway for improving some of their infrastructure and trails and new signage and things like that. And they're alerting that there's the Fundy National Park annual bird count on December 15th. I would like to make a thank you to the group of volunteers and the members of council and our staff from Public Works in particular and from Community Services for helping put up our Christmas tree that is a new design this year, a safer design, I would say, and easier to manage. So that's up. For those of you who missed it, last month after the council meeting, we had next door in the activity center our big water funding announcement with 12.2 million and change dollars that were agreed to by the federal and provincial governments with a contribution, a significant contribution from our municipality. And so that will be starting in earnest soon. I'm going to get more detail about how we're going to oversee that project and report to the community on a regular basis. I don't have that right now. And the last thing is just I continue to receive a lot of concerns from residents, particularly in Alma, about what they perceive, and I perceive it as well, as a deeply inefficient way that we're conducting operations with the trucks moving back and forth between Hillsborough and Alma and Riverside Albert, moving our employees and our equipment, sometimes only for very short taskings, yet it's a drive of almost an hour each way with the wear and tear of the vehicles, the fuel and the lost time for our employees with transportation. And I know that we're trying to address some of these things through our 2024 budgeting. I'm not sure where that's headed, but it will be interesting to see in the end how much it cost us in 2023 over what we were spending as the three communities in 2022. I suspect it's hugely more expensive the way we're doing it. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilor Coates.
Just a couple of things. I'd like to my colleague next to me, approach Daniel Gauguin to see how they raised 13% in one LSD, 9 point something in your how the formula was done. And then drop down to one other LIC was what, 3 point something. So it's a concern that we heard tonight of the, what are you getting for that? Well, and if we can get an answer of why rates, like, there was 4 LSD, okay, put together, or amalgamated. And they're all different rates and equal. Why? I guess that's my big question. Is come up with that. And we'd like, before we get into a budget, I'd like to get the answer for that. And next thing is, again, I'll bring it up, and I had mentioned it in the previous time. Last week, when the windstorm was on and that, we lost power for 12 hours. 4 hours after that, the phone system went out, so we were out, I think, about 9 hours without a phone. Okay. And this is, Hillsborough LSD, the old one, on Route 910 and Osborne Corner. I put a complaint, personal complaint into Bella Lyon. First of all, they said, "Oh, we're sorry about all this and that, and we'll have you an answer in 48 hours." So the next day, there was one in 24 hours, you'll get a response to it. 72 hours, and I get a response. The fellow said, "Well, that's easy with fiber. Just buy a third party thing and it'll give you more power to get you out of this thing." Well, in 2010, they told us we were getting fiber optic in that area. I missed something. This is 2023 and we haven't got it yet. So to me, that's a concern. There's, including myself, senior citizen in that area. If we had to call an ambulance in the middle of the night, how would we get it? You can't get a cell phone in the area. So I would like to put a request into public safety to see if they can push Bella Lyon to do something in that area. I know with Elgin had the same thing 2 years ago with the fire department, and they finally, with enough people complaining and so on and so forth, they did get a tower in the area, and now they have cell phones. And it's not just my area, it's a lot of, you know, Caledonia Mountain, there's Rosedale, back to Eden, almost into Riverview on Little Kirk Road. They have no cell service, or very sparse. So it is a concern.
Is Starlink help? You know, if Starlink would work for it?
Starlink would work for you, yes.
Can you do a phone, can you do phone through that?
Yeah.
Yes,
You can.
maybe that's the answer.
Was that a council? Or Councilor Ward Russell?
Just a few things to report on tonight. I had the opportunity to attend the UMNB meetings in Fredericton a couple weeks ago, and greatly appreciated the chance to meet the other representatives from other municipalities, as well as learning from the guest speakers who presented. I would recommend this conference to the rest of the council next year. As mentioned already tonight, I continue to support the residents living in the prior LSD areas and will continue to bring their concerns to the table with respect to tax rates, etc. I'm looking forward to future discussions with my peers as we navigate through this process. I've recently met with Jeff Russell with the Environment and Local Government on the proposed aerated lagoon plan for the Greensboro subdivision. I understand letters have been delivered to each resident by the province. The current status is to confirm the purchase of the property and to obtain a wetland assessment and then to develop the preliminary design. From my understanding, a public meeting will happen in the near future, which will confirm the details related to the connection and usage piece. Just lastly, I'm just curious with regards to the status of these streetlights that were approved at our October meeting. Has there been anything done in this file?
You'll reach out to administration and. Okay, thank you, Council Land.
I also went to the ULMD conference at Thursday, very informative. Talked to the new manager, the revenue was up, actually so far this year. The usage of the arena has increased, which is good. I was at the American State Service Health Program to lead itself afterwards, which was very well done, and I appreciate the invitation. The trade was well attended, had lots of floats, I think everybody was involved there, and all the volunteers. And I want to say thank you to all the volunteer firemen and fund you, they do an awesome job.
Great, thank you. For my part, I attended 2 Remembrance Day ceremonies in the village of Fundy, Albert, one in Riverside, Albert, and one in Alma on November 10th and 11th. I was also pleased to participate in the funding announcement by the 3 levels of government for the phase 2 of the Alma Water Exploration Project. This is excellent news for the community, and while there will still be some challenges moving forward, there's definitely some light at the end of the tunnel. Participated at the New Brunswick EMO Regional Visit Information Session at the South States Regional Service Commission. On Wednesday, November 22nd, we took part in the building of the Alma Lobster Tree, as Councilor Arrow mentioned. It was great to see involvement by Calhoun Regional High School students, area residents, our public works employees, and a number of elected officials. Many thanks to Mr. Chris Bowen for his time and the use of his backhoe, as well as Sopranos Pizza for the lunch they provided. I attended the Union of Municipalities in New Brunswick Annual Conference and Annual General Meeting on November 24th to 26th. There were many excellent presentations, including an information session by Micah Fardy and Lisa Ravlick of the Rural Upper Fundy Partnership. It was excellent to see our area showcased during a provincial forum. It was really nice to see. I was contacted by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and invited to participate as a panelist on an upcoming webinar on December 12th. The topic will be destination development and placemaking. So I've agreed to that, and there's other meetings to happen as well. Last but not least, I'd like to acknowledge the resident and community of Alma who's come forward to highlight the importance of ensuring that additional water system customers should be added to the new water supply when constructed. We need to be mindful that including additional customers will help spread the cost of a new system to as many people as possible, thus reducing rates. That is all I have. Moving on to item number 11. We do have a number of motions that need to be passed. So a series of motions are required for the appointment of auditors, GICs that are due for renewal, and the Canada Community Building Fund and gas tax fund. Those motions are provided in front of you. So the first one is a resolution required to appoint a new auditor for the Village of Hillsborough 2022 audit. If someone would be so kind as to read that.
Whereas Baker Tilly no longer has the capability to complete the former Village of Hillsborough's 2022 audit, and whereas Ascend LLP has agreed to take it over, be it resolved that Ascend LLP be appointed the new auditors to complete the former Village of Hillsborough's 2022 audit.
So moved by Councillor Elderkin. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Lang. Any discussion on the motion?
No, how did we do on the cost for that?
Of the
Audit, with the new audit comparable to the.
well, if it's any indication, if the cost of the future audit for funded Albert, it's going to be identified. It should be good.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, all in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Okay.
Opposed, if any, motion's carried. The second resolution is required to appoint an auditor for the Village of Fundy, Albert for the 2023 audit. If someone would be so kind as to read that.
Whereas the Senate LLP has agreed to complete the audit on the Albert's 2023 financials at the cost of $18,400 plus HST. Be it resolved that the Senate LLP be appointed the auditor to complete the audit on the August 2023.
And moved by Councilor Land, and seconded by Councilor Jonah. Any discussion on the motion? That is actually very decent cost.
Very much so.
Yeah. If not, all in favor, signify by stating aye. Opposed, if any, motion's carried unanimously. The third item is a resolution required to reinvest the GIC due to mature in relation to the Riverside Albert Utility Fund. If someone would be so kind to read that.
Whereas Riverside Albert Utilities GIC of 34,706, number 42, is due to mature on December 5th, 2023. Be it resolved that Riverside Albert's GIC number 42 of 34,706 plus interest earned be reinvested in a cashable GIC for another year.
So moved by Councilor Elderkin, seconded by Councilor Coates. Any questions on the motion? Not, all in favor, signify by stating aye. Opposed, if any, motion's carried unanimously. The next resolution is required to reinvest the GIC due to mature in relation to funds set aside for Riverside Albert street repairs. If someone would be so kind as to read that motion.
Whereas the subunit of Riverside Albert Street Repair GIC of 14,785, number 49, is to mature on December 5th, 2023. Be it resolved that GIC number 49 of 14,785 plus interest be reinvested in a cashable GIC for 1 year.
So moved by Councilor Elderkin, seconded by Councilor Jones. Any questions on the motion?
I do, but why wouldn't you spend the money on repairing your streets?
Because it's not enough to repair street.
Exactly. There was some consideration given this past summer, but it's not significant enough difference. Right. Any other questions? All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye. Opposed, if any, motion's carried unanimously. A resolution is required to reinvest 2 GICs due to mature in relation to the Canada Community Building Fund. Did I miss one?
Yeah.
That's what happens when you try to prepare. The middle one, resolution for the Riverside Albert Recreation GIC reinvestment. If someone would be so kind as to read that, please.
Whereas Riverside Albert's Recreation Center GIC of 11,362 cents, number 50, is to mature on December 5th. Be it resolved that Riverside Albert's Recreation Center GIC number 50 of 11,362 cents plus interest be reinvested in a cashable GIC for 1 year.
So moved by Councilor Elderkin, seconded by Councilor Jonah. Any questions on the motion? Not, all in favor?
What's this GIC?
It was money that's been put away in the past for anything that the rec center may need. We did spend a lot of it prior to amalgamation. We purchased new dishes for the rec center that you've seen there. There's new silverware, new plates, new bowls. So it's set aside for specifically for items that the rec center need.
Any other questions? Not, all in favor, signify by stating aye. Opposed, if any, motion's carried. Next is a resolution required to reinvest 2 GICs due to mature in relation to the Canada Community Building Fund. If someone would be so kind as to read that.
Whereas Canada Community Building Funds cash with GICs of $137,470.48, number 43. And $14,774.11, number 44, are to mature on December 5th, 2023. Be it resolved that the GIC number 43 of $137,470.48 and number 44 of $14,774.11 plus interest be reinvested in cash GIC for 1 year.
So moved by Councilor Land, seconded by Councilor Elderkin. Any questions on the motion?
What's this one about?
These are the county community
Hanging on to this
building
one?
funds
Yeah.
that we had set aside for these, the gas tax project and the county community building fund projects. That money is parked, so now it's parked and reinvested so that we can use it when we go ahead with some of the projects that are included in the Canada Community Building Fund 5-year plan that is coming up.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye. Opposed, if any, the motion is carried unanimously. And next is a resolution required to reinvest funds set aside for the Riverside Albert Volunteer Fire Department following the installation of 2 mini splits and 1 cold climate heat pump system. Someone would be so kind as to read that motion, please.
Whereas the Riverside Albert Fire Department's cashable GIC of $45,039.06, number 45, and $9,738.67, number 48, and whereas it was resolved that $12,600 plus net HST of $539.97 be withdrawn from GIC number 45 for the purchase of 2 mini splits and 1 cold climate heat pump system by Terrace Refrigeration Limited. And whereas that leaves $41,637.76 plus interest to be reinvested. Be it resolved that $41,637.76 plus interest be reinvested in the cashable GIC for another year.
So moved by Councillor Elderkin. Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Jonah. Any questions on the motion? Not, all in favor, signify by stating aye. Opposed, if any, motion's carried unanimously. The second last motion is a resolution to adopt the Funding Albert 5-year capital investment plan for the gas tax fund administrative agreement for the period 2014 to 2018. I would need a motion to adopt that document.
I can move the document entitled the Funding Albert 5-year capital investment plan for the gas tax fund administrative agreement from 2014 to 2018 be adopted.
So moved by Councillor Ward Russell, seconded by Councillor Coates. Any questions on the motion?
I'm still confused about why we're approving a plan that's a 2014 to 2018 plan. I don't know why I don't get it, but I don't get it.
It's likely the result of it having been amended. If it's an amended plan, it requires to be adopted through a resolution of council.
And what was amended, do we know?
I can't tell you. It's coming from our treasurer who put that document together for council. And in order for it to be advanced to the province, it needs to be adopted through a resolution.
Does anybody really get it?
Well, is this the one she gave us a presentation on?
Yeah, there were 2. There's actually 2.
Correct,
Yes.
there's 2,
Yes,
and we did make an amendment to it at the time.
we
moved
made
it.
amendments to both of them.
Correct.
Yeah, and they need to be adopted through a resolution of
Correct.
council and submitted to the province.
Right. Do I know exactly what the amendments were at this moment in time? No, but I do know we did meet and we did have the discussion when we moved some things around.
It must mean that we're still haven't done some of this stuff, is that right?
That's correct.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it was you that said, so you're saying we have this money here that we haven't spent.
for example, one of the changes was to do some of the electrical repairs in the activity center. That's built into it.
Right.
And so now that we have these matters dealt with, then now we can start to use some of that money as part of the GICs. Okay, any other questions? All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye. Opposed, if any, motion's carried unanimously. The last one is a resolution required to adopt the Funding Albert 5-year capital investment plan for the Canada Community Building Fund 2019 to 2023. If someone would be so kind as to read that motion, please.
I so move that the document entitled Funding Alberta 5-Year Capital Investment Plan for the Canada Community Building Fund, CCBF, from 2019 to 2023 be adopted.
So moved by Councilor Lord Russell, seconded by Councilor Elderton. Any questions on the motion? Same idea. It's an amendment to those, they need to be passed with a resolution. No other questions? All in favor, signify by stating aye. Opposed, if any? Motion's carried unanimously. That is the end of the motion. So we move on to item number 12, which is comments and statements from the public. So we'll now offer the opportunity to provide comments and statements. If required, a time limit of 15 minutes will apply. We will, first one up was Mr. Pinnacle. Go ahead.
Give my copy of the letter, I want to thank him for the thank you. See my copy of the letter for distribution to the clerk. And the clerk.
Great, thank you very much. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. So a couple things. First one just being that, I'll throw my hat in the ring to volunteer and work on your website until such time as you get a web developer on board. If you want to help and I'll just give me a call. Number two, and not that I'm a professional by any stretch, but I just worked with WordPress and bunch, so I can probably help you out. Number two, I was curious about the Christmas lights in Elma. We have the truck came in, take down the Remembrance Day banners, which were fantastic, and put up one light. I believe it's one.
Okay.
What is up with that?
Okay. I'm gonna actually go ahead.
You might know more.
No, and Councilor Arrow and I corresponded back and forth. What happened apparently is that when they went to put the lights up, the hardware that was used, and I'm assuming was left on the poles to put the lights up, was either broken or badly corroded, and they couldn't put the lights up. So I asked our director of operations if we could get the hardware to put those lights.
Got it. Thank you very much. I thought it was weird.
Maybe, well, sorry, maybe.
No, it's not working. Okay, yeah, I was just curious if the lights, lights have gone missing or something. And my last comment has still to do with the Hillsborough Rec Council. At the meeting at Riverside Elder Community Center, I don't know if that was last month, Councilor Arrow had asked the question about what that entity was. Everybody at the table seemed to shake their head like they had no idea what he was talking about. I would say that a couple of people on this council knew at that point in time. I'm saying your transparency is still looking a little shaky and you need to work on that. That makes the whole thing look suspect. That's all.
The only thing that I would say in response to that, Mr. Kelly, is I think for me personally, I knew that it existed. What I didn't understand was having full appreciation for the genesis of it, how it came to be, what it was being used for. So my commitment was to find out what that was for. And we provided some of the details.
I do appreciate that, but you had used the entity in this calendar year. So you did have a little more knowledge than you alluded to at that meeting.
Okay, fair statement, fair comment. Okay, yes, sir.
I heard conversation to your point, and what Joe's, which I completely appreciate. There's 3 separate recreation organizations for Elma, Riverside, Alberta, and Hillsborough. Why wouldn't that be one?
Good point.
But they're independent, they're community led, well, at least the one here is.
But it could be a plenty Albert.
Well, could be, right.
Community led with people from Alma, people from Hillsborough, people from Riverside, Alberta.
I can
We
hope,
have to start acting as one.
I'll get with the board members here and you should take it to them.
No, excellent, actually. You know, on point comments, very good comment.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Warner.
I'd like to thank John Aaron for conducting the meeting for the update on the Alpha Water. is an excellent MC, it was well organized, it was very important that we understand all that. And I commend the mayor for allowing him to do that. I think that it ought to be a regular item of this council to have John do future updates.
Oh, I agree, Councilor Arrow did a wonderful job, MC. And providing some information and informing the residents. Well, I would agree.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd just like to put a priority in the water for support of the Naughty program. As an owner here of a property in Elma that's severely affected by Naughty on the town property right next to my property. We're kind of making some headway on it, but it's real important to keep the program going.
And that was a 5-year plan or 3 years into. And it takes 5 years to get rid of that shit.
Well, even the jury's out on that.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And I might add that in driving from Moncton or from Alma to Moncton on a regular basis, there's not only Alma that's affected by Naughty.
I would
There's
agree.
a couple of real good patches in Hillsborough.
I wasn't aware that knotweed was a thing until about a year ago, but now I see it everywhere.
Well, I mean, it's to the point that if you own the property in England or BC and has not been on, you can't sell
That's right, I've read that.
it. So
It
that
was actually Mr. Warnock that provided me an article on that and I read it, so. Yeah. My wife thinks I'm obsessed with knotweed.
And the report that I alluded to earlier that Keith had done, it's very.
Very informative.
And we'll get that up.
Great, thank you very much. Any other comments? Yes, Mrs. Christopher.
Can council, provide and bring forth information about what the community representative and what her authority is for implementing programs or, approving a community initiative? I don't think that role has been defined for Fundy Albert and should be.
There's an initiative, just kind of in response to that, there's an initiative underway right now that council has supported, and that's the creation of work descriptions for all employees of the municipality, and that will likely result in a review of existing work descriptions, of which there are not many. And so there will be better definitions of what roles and responsibilities are. So I'm hopeful that that will come from.
Well, what is her role now than before that?
The role is that of Director of Community Services. She has a work description. I don't know the details, the intricacies of it, other than it involves tourism, economic development, and I believe there's an element of, pardon me?
Some grant work.
Some grant work, and she's obviously looking after social media and doing a fantastic job as far as I'm concerned with social media. But what exactly, how that can evolve and whether all those roles are meeting the expectations and obligations of our community needs to be discussed and sorted out so that there's a home for every particular activity within all of the work descriptions in the municipality.
Does she have any spending authority?
Not currently, but there may be an opportunity to provide someone an opportunity to have a budget for that. I know that's been discussed, but that has to be discussed further by council and decided by council as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? So thank you very much, folks. We do have a number of closed session items. So I will accept a motion to move into in camera. Moved by Councillor Elnick, seconded by Councillor Arrow. All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye. Aye. Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Thank you very much, folks.